Today's session will be led by Krista. She is a school psychology and special education evaluation specialist supervisor at CDE, the Colorado Department of Education. We're thrilled to have her here guiding today's learning. And with that, I will turn things over to you, Krista, to begin our session.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I do have to apologize. My allergies are going wild, so I'm a little scratchy. So I will power through and I've got my tea, but if there's ever anything that you need me to say again or repeat, please do ask. Also, if you've never been to any professional development with me, I like interaction, and this presentation is heavy on interaction. And so just know I'm going to be asking you to engage and to answer questions either in the chat or aloud. The goal today is not only for you to learn about things, but to try a few things out before we're done. Like Claire said, I work at our Colorado Department of Education. My formal title is School Psychology and Special Education Evaluation Specialist. It's a lot of SPAs. I technically support our school psychs, school social workers across the state, anything related to their work, anything around special education evaluation. And where this topic has come from is about 2 years ago. If you live in the world of special education, AI and special education has really intersected. And so I wanted to dive deep into AI and understand appropriate uses, ethics, when should we be using it, when shouldn't we be using it. So I've done a lot of research, especially around special education evaluations. And then I've been using it myself. And so we're going to talk about that throughout, about how I use AI in my work and then also in life. And so what I've been doing is talking to others about this and just trying to help others learn as well and how they can use this in their practice. A little bit about me. I'm from rural North Dakota. That is actually my family farm in the top right. And like I said, I support school teams across Colorado, ensuring students with disabilities receive equitable, legally sound services and special education evaluations. I'm a licensed school psychologist, nationally certified school psychologist. That is my therapy dog. That is my family farm. So if you ever hear any weird O's come out of my mouth, it's my North Dakota coming out. If you in the chat, I would love to know who is here. So generally my presentations is heavily school psych, social work, special education teacher. So I'd love to know who and then where. So who, what, where. So who you are, so your name, what role you do, and then where you are at in Colorado. Yes. So this is gonna be a very diverse audience. I'm glad. OT, SLP, love it. AT specialist, OT, SLP, love it. Oh, all over. Speech path, special ed teacher, great. CODA, love it. So everyone's from all over, a lot of different roles. TOSA, SLP. Yes, San Juan. Welcome, Robin. Okay, so get ready to explore. So when I'm doing this presentation and when I've been working with my teammates on this content, I want you to leave, like I said earlier, trying things out. The goal is for you to not just sit and listen. So for you to get the full experience, I do want you to log in or open a preferred AI tool. So that could be ChatGPT, it could be Gemini, it could be Claude, Perplexity, whatever AI tool that either you have already. If you do not have one, I would probably go ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude, one of those three, because when we're going throughout, I am going to be asking you to try and test things and do various prompts so you can see how it reacts, where it works well, where it doesn't work well. We are going to, like I said, complete several short guided activities. I will never ask you to share any student data. I want you to use neutral or sample topics. So we're going to do a lot of what I call like low risk activities so that you can see how to use it and how to interact with it without any concerns around the use of AI. And keep a browser tab open and ready to go. And then again, be ready to share loud or chat in the chat with your experiences. I love interaction as well. So if you have a question, raise your hand and I'll call on you. I'd rather stop and chat about something in the moment versus waiting till the end. And I am not the end all be all expert. So I love technology. I grew up very with technology and I have spent a lot of time on technology. I've always been interested in technology, but I'm not the AI ultimate expert. What I am is I'm a curious learner exploring this with you. I'm also cautious. So I will also say I love and I hate AI and technology at the same time. I love that I can watch my nephew's hockey games here in Colorado, back home in Minnesota and North Dakota, and I can FaceTime with them. But then I also hate that my nephews spend too much time on video games, right? So we have to understand that there's going to be a balance and there's going to be too much use and there's going to be a situation actually with AI where you don't understand it enough. And so this is one of my things I'm really going to try and talk to you all about is that there has to be AI literacy and AI understanding because you can't avoid it completely. It is going to be embedded in all of our platforms. It is embedded in my UC Health app. It's embedded in actually the Colorado Department of Ed website already. So there's going to be no realistic way for you to avoid it completely. So there's going to be a need for everybody, all educators, all adults, to have some basic level of understanding. Disclosures, this presentation is based on my current knowledge, right? So this has changed a lot just in the last year, and things have changed and research has changed. So just know that that is where we're at today. And it's also a professional interest, especially around the intersectionality of mental health and special education. And then I use ChatGPT and Claude to support editing and revision to process and enhance clarity and organization. So just know I actually use the ChatGPT and Claude to check for accessibility, to check to make sure I do not have any spelling errors, to help me reformat paragraphs into table or into bullets. So there are many ways for you to use it that are easy, low lift. No, you always have to check, but we'll talk about this as we go through. But I also want you to know that it is ethical to disclose when you are using AI, and be open and have a conversation about it versus not. Actually, the National Association of School Psychologists recommends the disclosure, especially if you're using it in the realm of special education. Agenda, we're going to talk about what is AI, what it's not, ethics policies. So we're going to talk about some things from NASP, my national organization, FERPA, state guidance, CDE things. We're going to talk about risks and oversight, bias, hallucinations, PII. What is a hallucination? We're going to do interactive activities throughout, practical applications, so ways that you could try and test it in real life. And then we are going to talk about ways that you could possibly integrate it into your practice when you're working with students, especially around accessibility and accommodations. So just know AI is moving faster than our policies and legislation. So today we'll explore how to stay ethical, curious, and confident. So just know that AI is moving very fast. I know that researchers and legislators are trying to catch up, but we are very far behind. And so just know that when you are using things, oftentimes the guardrails that are in traditional platforms are not there yet. Okay, in the chat or aloud, if you are comfortable, what best describes your comfort level with AI? So are you a novice, have never used it? Are you an expert? Do you use it every day like me? You've never used it, you're scared of it? Novice, beginner?
Novice.
Novice. Thanks, Kristen, for sharing. Almost daily, basic. Pretty familiar. You use it daily. Couple times a week. Basic. Starting to use it and see what you can do. Use it almost daily. Yep. Don't fully trust it yet. I will say, Krista, hello, fellow Krista. I use it daily and I still don't fully trust it. Just know that skepticism should stay because we'll talk about why. Use it to photo edit. Still have a lot to fear from the IT director perspective regarding my staff. Yeah, we're going to talk about some of those things, Robin. Great. Use it for daily for a variety of tasks. Great. Okay, we're going to keep going. Thank you for sharing. So some foundational things to understand and know. Generative AI is like autocomplete on steroids. So this is from Ashwin Schreider from Common Sense Media. So there is a document from Common Sense Media that I highly recommend that you look to and use if this is something you are going to work towards integrating in, or like if you are an IT specialist or if you're going to be in an AI task force or a work group. The Common Sense Media has put out a lot of good resources on how to integrate AI appropriately into a school setting and how children and youth should be using it. So this is the link to that document that I just was talking about. So generative AI refers to technology that can create content, so text, images, audio, based on input data, so based on your prompt, rather than simply analyzing existing data. So it creates versus just analyzing. And the Common Sense Media white paper aims to explore generative AI's impact on K-12, outlining benefits, challenges, and best practices for use in schools. So this is one of my favorite resources. It is built for schools, and it's really helpful in understanding where and when and how and what things to be cautious about. So just know generative AI and actual intelligence are not the same thing. Generative AI responds word by word using statistical models to predict what comes next. So you're going to hear this often. It's a prediction tool. What is the pattern? And it continues the pattern. The US Department of Education, it says AI is a highly advanced mathematical toolkit, writing one word at a time based on likely patterns. So again, it is a pattern recognition tool. So it's going to see patterns and continue the pattern. Common misconceptions, as many believe AI can think like humans. In reality, it's only simulates understanding, and then misunderstanding AI's capabilities can lead to an overestimation of its comprehension. So just understanding that we have to be cautious because it's not always right. It's not always correct. And so we have to be able to understand how to guardrail it ourselves, so then that way we could use it appropriately. AI reveals the biases that we have within our own culture because the images in these data sets reflect the representation of our society. So most large generative AI models use the whole internet, right? So ChatGPT uses the whole internet. And so when we're thinking about the internet, is everything factual on the internet? No. Also, if we're thinking about the internet, there's a lot of things on the internet around racism, sexism, homophobia, all of the things. And so understanding that ChatGPT, AI tools are going to mimic that pattern as well. So our biases that we have as a culture and a society are going to still show up. And so that is something that we have to be aware of if we are choosing to use it. And an easy example of this is I will use it to help me write case studies. And almost always, if I'm using a gender neutral pronoun or I'm asking it to do a case study and try and keep it gender neutral, just so there's not bias around if it's a boy or a girl, it will make all case studies of behavior a boy. And so it's almost every case study, it will make behavior a boy. And so just know that that's an easy example where it's automatically assuming that there's significant behavior, so it has to be a boy. So the history of AI. So this feels very new. It feels like it just came out in the last 2 years, but theoretically it has not. It really started in the 1950s with Alan Turing. He introduces the idea of the machine intelligence and computing machinery and intelligence. In 1956, Dartmouth College or Conference coins the term AI, artificial intelligence. In 1957 through 1974, early AI tools emerge, including ELIZA. In 1967, SAINT becomes the first intelligent tutoring system for math and ELA. In 1970, Marvin Minsky predicts human-level machine intelligence within a decade. In the 80s, AI resurgence with expert systems in Japan's fifth generation project. In 1997, IBM's Deep Blue defeats chess champion Gary Kasparov. And then, I'm sure you all aware, in 1997, Dragon Systems adds speech recognition to Windows. So Dragon is an example of a very basic AI tool. And then 1998, Alex launches an adaptive math assessment tool. And so just know that this has been built on many, many years. It does feel new because the most recent iterations are so expansive and so unique. And I would say also because it's more accessible to people. I've used Dragon quite a bit, but it's not very accessible to the lay population, whereas now all of these things are now being integrated into all of our technology that we carry around on a daily basis. This is not a very accessible visual, but just know if you want to go and look through the history of AI, I do highly recommend this research out of Harvard. But really what it is and what it's not. So it is a tool to support teaching and learning. I see AI as my secretary or as like a calculator. It's a very fancy calculator. What it is not a replacement for educators or student growth. What it is it's already embedded in many technologies and many platforms, and we're not going to be able to completely avoid it. And it's something that we cannot fully avoid or turn off. AI is built by humans with values, limits, and bias, and it's not free from societal influence. And it is an algorithm that generates new content from patterns. It is not capable of independent thought. So when I think about AI, I think of it as a fancy calculator. And so if I were to go and input a calculus problem into a fancy calculator, I do not have experience with calculus, so I'm just going to assume the output is correct. My brother, who's an engineer, he's going to be able to say, oh, that's not correct. That output, there's something wrong there. So that is what we have to think about when we're using AI. People have to have the basic understanding and knowledge to estimate what should be coming out. And it's also vice versa. So if my brother asked AI a question around education, he's just going to assume it's correct. Well, he's not going to assume, but he might assume that it's correct. Or if I put a question about education, I have enough background knowledge to decipher, is that even remotely correct? And when we're thinking about the use of AI, we really have to go back to it is pattern recognition and it's a tool. And so thinking through how to use it well, it's very good at understanding patterns. It's very good at tasks, anything clerical. It's not good at creating. And it's not magic, it's pattern prediction. So our first warm-up activity. So I want us to try AI before we get into anything deeper. So you should open up your AI tool of choice, whatever AI tool. If you have one on your desktop, like for example, here at the Department of Education, we have AI built into our Microsoft system already. So we have, what is it called? Copilot built into our Microsoft. So open up your AI tool of choice. Today, like I said, we're going to do things that are low risk, high curiosity. The goal is for you to see where it works and where it doesn't work and how you can use it and how you can explore and continue to use it so that you have some AI literacy. Okay, we're going to do some meal planning. So this is one task that I actually do use AI for. I think about using it as AI for things that I'm like, I do not have the mental capacity. How can I lighten my mental load? And so this is an example of an easy way to use it. So what I want you to do is in your platform, in your AI tool, I want you to say, define your needs. So I have 5 people coming over, 2 have a corn allergy, 1, right, dairy free, or we want to grill. So an example prompt is plan a 3-day vegetarian meal plan for 2 people with simple recipes and a grocery list. So enter any preferences, and then I want you to hit enter. And so then I want you to see what it outputs. a way that I do this is I actually will stand in front of my refrigerator and I'll say, oh, I have a cucumber, I have some chicken, I have X. Help me create a meal plan with what I already have and what other items do I need to buy? Okay, so once you've entered your first initial prompt, what I want you to do then is add an additional prompt. So you should have gotten like a couple recipes or meal plan ideas, maybe a grocery list. Also, not everyone's going to get the same response. So that is also something to remember with AI. So if I enter the same prompt as Amy, most likely our responses are going to be different, especially if I'm using that I've been using before because it has memory and it's going to remember me. I want you to add an additional prompt. So add in that it has to be kid friendly. Add in that you substitute all meat for meat-free options. Add in that you need things that are gluten-free. And then see how it changes the response. Okay. Anyone want to share what worked? What would you change or what would you do differently next time? What did you observe? Samantha says she already does this. Anyone have any observations? So the kid-friendly prompt made it very basic, not very appealing. Hannah, you've learned you need to put in more information than you originally thought. Yes, prompts matter. So how good your prompt is going to matter significantly on the output. Your output is only going to be as good as what you input. Yep, it's all about how you write the prompts. Yes, what you include, any context you can include. You always need to put in more information. Yes, prompts matter significantly. Yep, easily adjusted menu for additional allergies. You can also insert a picture, save the fridge, and see what you have. Yeah, so it takes in all your previous information that you've already inputted and then the additional context that you add on and utilizes that as well. Yes. And you can use it to make a shopping list. So I do this with my family, especially around holidays when we're planning with my sister-in-law, because there's a lot of factors. And so we will put in, we need 4 days of recipes that X and Y, and they need to be high protein, and we'll make a full list. And then I'll say, okay, now give us the grocery list. And it'll create a lovely grocery list. And you can ask it, give us a grocery list based on where you're finding it in the store. So like meats and dairy, and it'll chunk it out for you as well. Gave you the prompt suggestion to optimize for Costco. Yep. Yeah, so you have to build upon if it doesn't get quite right. So this is where what I want you to see is that prompts matter significantly, and you could add additional guardrails by adding additional information. Yeah, so it is, Dave brings up a good point. Can't use voice with Zoom on, but definitely do that. Talk to it like a person and give it a lot of info. Yeah, so if you have an option to do the voice to text, it's a really great way to just sit there and you can talk into it and say, I need A, B, C, D. Here's what I have. And actually, Jessica, I do know there are some companies that are hoping to do like integrate it in for like your grocery order. So you can like upload the list and it'll just like go into your shopping cart. So I do know people are trying to make that happen. Anything like weird or like, oh, this was great, this was bad? Another, so like I said, I use AI often, and so I will even use it to double recipes. So for example, if I have a recipe and I'm like, ooh, what is this doubled? We're trying to make a bigger version. It's actually done it incorrectly before. It usually does it almost always correct. But one time it went, like it was supposed to be like half of a teaspoon, and it said to put 3 tablespoons in. And my nephew, we were baking, he didn't notice. And so then we had to like quadruple the recipe, right? So just know that anytime you're using it, even if you think it's a simple task, you're going to have to double check it. I did not double check that one. And we ran into an issue where we ended up with a lot of cookies, but it was fine in the end. Yeah, so Jessica, if you have an account, like let's say if you are logged into an account, it will get to know you as you keep using it. And so for example, certain platforms too, you can say like, this is how I like my email responses to be. And so then it will remember that. And then when you go to do a prompt of help me write this email, it will remember that you like clear, concise, parent-friendly language, and then it'll gear towards that. So if you're logged into an account, yes, but that depends. So some AI tools will remember you. I use Claude and ChatGPT regularly. And they tend to remember my voice and my preferences. You don't always have to go back to the same stream as long as you're logged into your account. So Jessica, well, I like a variety of tools for different reasons. But we'll talk about the options out there in the world. And I'm never going to endorse or say one's better than the other because they all have pros and cons. Yes. So BOCES, this is a tool because I have food allergies that I use when I'm meal planning with others that possibly have allergies, or like my nephews who have really strict food preferences, like they don't eat certain things. It just makes it easier. Okay, so now you saw how you could possibly use it. Let's talk about some ethics, policies, and risks. So either aloud or in the chat, when you hear AI in schools, what do you think? When you hear AI in schools, what do you think when you finish that sentence? Oh, you modified a recipe? Great. Hopefully kids aren't using it too much. Yikes, yeah. Krista, I agree. Another Krista. We have 3 Kristas in here. It's a great tool, but not understood by all. Yes, I agree with that statement. Kids will use it to write papers. Accessibility. I think improve efficiency of tasks. Worried. PII data breach. We are going to talk about PII. Yes, a tool. So you have Copilot. It does not replace critical thinking. Great tool if used correctly. Yes. And honestly, that's where I am. I'm a heavy user and I love and hate it at the same time. And so I think all of these things often. So I'm right there with you. So best practice is we ourselves, we have to use it responsibly and we have to help others. So our students, our colleagues. And so we have to protect data and privacy. So you have to know your terms of use and privacy policies. This is one thing I've actually seen quite a bit where people are like, I'm using X. And I'm like, do you know where they're storing their data? Do you know what their privacy policies are? All of these platforms do have privacy policies, and they have policies around their data and their data use and their selling of data. And so if you're choosing to use one platform, I would say to look into that. Use tools with strong data safeguards. So generally tools that are free do not have safeguards at all. I will tell you right now, if a tool is free, most likely they're selling your data. It will sell your data because that's how they're making money. If there's a reason why it's free. So just know that I strongly prefer to use tools that have a strong safeguard system in. My joke is you have to be willing to have it be on the front page of Amazon's website. And if you're not comfortable with it being published on the front page of Amazon's website, you shouldn't be putting it in a free platform. Avoid entering private or sensitive info, PII student data. So this is also something I would say I personally have strong disagreements with some companies. They have a vested interest. I do not have a vested financial interest. There are companies out there that are advocating that you upload a lot of previous evaluations, special ed evaluations to help you write special education evaluation summaries. I do not recommend that at all. That is a violation of that student's personally identifiable information, student data. We need to know who has access to that data, who has access to the physical servers. Is that data being stored? Is it being wiped? There's just a lot of questions. And then also, did that person consent for you to upload into an AI platform? And most often, no. And so just know that CDE does not advocate and promotes not using any PII or student data in AI platforms. Always using human oversight. So you have to double check for bias, errors, and hallucinations. And we're going to talk about what a hallucination is. Think about AI as helping you draft and that you make the final decision. So AI can be a helpful tool, can help you summarize, it can help you clarify, it can help you put things in family-friendly language, but it also can rewrite it so it makes it different. For a while there, it was changing special education to unique education a lot. That's not happening as much now, but just know you have to double check. And then never rely on AI as your data source or a source of truth. There's a lot of research coming out around hallucinations. And what a hallucination is it is AI is using pattern recognition and extrapolating the pattern. And so, for example, it could say that Krista Klabo published in the School Psychology Journal about special education evaluation. I have not, but I've talked about special education evaluation a lot. So it's pattern recognition that I do speak on that topic a lot. I do present on that topic a lot, but I'm not published, right? And so it pattern recognizes and it's going to give you what it think should exist. CDE, we have policies. So staff AI use is monitored, just like all of our computer and technology use is monitored. Our technology office, IMS, will coordinate training to reduce risk. So we have internal trainings to talk about AI, what it is, when to use it, when not to use it. Data confidentiality, we have to follow CDE's data policies and the Colorado Open Records Act. So this is also something that was mind-blowing to someone I brought up earlier. Your AI use could be CORAD. It could be if you're using it for school, right? So if there's a lawsuit, if there is a state complaint, and there's reason to believe that you used AI as a tool, just like if we were to request your emails as part of a state complaint, we could request your AI data and use as part of a state complaint. So just know that if you're using it for school, that could be something that happens. And same for us. So we get CORA requested. And so I would have to turn over my history for them to use and look at. We're only supposed to use CDE approved devices for technology and for any CDE platforms. So that means I have to use Copilot for work. And then I additionally use, I'm part of a ChatGPT pilot program within CDE. So I'm only allowed to use CDE AI tools for work. I'm not allowed to use ones I pay for myself. We always have to check for bias, errors, and plagiarism. We always have to apply human oversight. And for us, any non-compliance may lead to corrective action or suspension or termination. So for example, if I use AI to help write an email and I send it out and it's legally incorrect, I could be in trouble and dinged for that. Okay, CDE also has an AI website. So there's a couple groups internally that are working around some strategies and resources. We'll talk about that in a little bit, Ken. But so we have a group internally, a couple groups internally that are looking around AI's use, misuse, and then how to use it well in schools. And so just know we do have an AI website. Our website also has an integrated AI bot. And so it is a tool for you to search or ask it a question to help find things on our website. So in that situation, it is not a large language model. So it's not looking at the whole website. It's only looking at our CDE website. So in that situation, it is a limited language model, an LLM, and it's only looking at the data set of our website to give you answers. So in the chat, I want you to say, do you have policies, AI policies or not? And do you know them? Do you know if your district or administrative unit has policies? And then do you know what they are? You're creating them right now. Great. None that you're aware of. No and no. Yes, you wrote them. Yes. So some people have to go through extension training before they're allowed to use it. So Erica, they're currently working on it, currently limited to Magic School. Team is working on it. Okay, great. Okay, good. If you don't know your policies, I would highly recommend looking into your policies. I also would always advocate that you know a few things about the platforms you're using, and we'll talk about those as we go through. The basic AI principles around responsibility is transparency. So I'm transparent when I use it. I'm transparent when people ask how I use it. I'm transparent when I use it for editing PowerPoints and how I used it. Because then it builds trust around that we are using AI as an assistant or a tool. It's not replacing my brain. It's not replacing research. Fairness, so I'm avoiding bias that may harm marginalized students. So I'm really cross-checking to ensure that any output is not stereotypical. Any output that I want around case studies, any output I want around any support or PowerPoints I'm using, any emails, it's not using language that would enhance or reinforce inappropriate stereotypes. And then safety and privacy, and then trustworthiness. And so, again, this is from the Common Sense Media from 2024. So some ethical considerations. AI outputs can contain bias, mirroring societal inequities in the data used to train them. Accuracy issues, AI can hallucinate. So it generates plausible but incorrect information, necessitating careful oversight. And then there's privacy concerns. Somebody just brought up FERPA in the chat. AI's use of personal data needs to align with confidential standards. So there is no company that gives the rubber stamp for FERPA. So I know there's many companies out there that are saying we're FERPA compliant. We were tested. We're FERPA compliant. They're paying a company to vet them, so they're paying for that stamp. Okay, so just know that. So when we're thinking about HIPAA and FERPA, we're thinking about protected data. So if you're saying it's FERPA compliant, if you're saying it's HIPAA compliant, that data means it's protected. It's not accessible by other people. In your district at CDE, we have our own physical servers. Does anybody know where your physical servers are in your district or administrative unit? When I was a school psych, it was in my office. Hannah knows where hers are. In your office too. On the floor below you. So this is something that people often don't understand about the cloud. So understanding that the cloud or AI, they're all operated on servers, a physical server. Okay, and so just know like CDEs, important data, private information, that's housed on our physical servers. We own that. It's protected physically. No one can get in there. Generally, there's 2 locks or 1 lock at least to get into that room. It's not a common room. And then, yep, you own yours. I work for the state. Yep. And like Pearson, for example, Pearson has their own physical servers that they have for their testing, and they monitor and their data controlled. One of my biggest concerns around a lot of these AI companies, they do not own their own physical servers. They use other people's servers and they pay them to store the data on them. I gave a hint earlier, but anyone know what the most common company that provides servers to businesses? AWS, Amazon Web Servers, yes. So Amazon Web Servers service is the most common company, there's a couple of them, that provides storage data for people to store their information on. So that is why I joke, when you're using AI, you have to be comfortable with it being on the front page of Amazon. If you do not know where their servers are located, most likely it's Amazon Web Server. And that's actually a question I've asked a couple of the companies directly, and they can't answer them, or they don't want to answer them to me, unfortunately. So like, where are their physical servers? Are they protected? Are they wiped? Who has access to that data? Right? Physical access, and then also electronic access to that data. And then additionally, are they selling that data? So these are all things that people need to know and understand, especially if you're going to be putting anything about any students in there. So just know that those are questions that are not often answered in the spiel, in their platform, when they're advertising, right? They're talking about how wonderful they are, or they're saying we're FERPA compliant. I've had companies say we're FERPA compliant, and then I respond back saying, where are your physical servers? And they don't know. So just know that those are some things that you need to think about, especially if you're helping writing these policies, or if you're choosing a platform for your district. Ooh. So Department of Ed noted a few risks, the race to release risk. So right now we're seeing a lot of companies that are racing to release platforms because they see this as a really strong fiscal opportunity, place for them to make a lot of money. They're taking advantage of fields that are overworked and have limited time, right? So we are overworked, we have limited time. So they're like, great, if I give them something, I'm gonna get all of these schools on board and I'm gonna make all this money. Unfortunately, we have to remember that they're a business, they're in it to make money. There's bias and fairness risks, there's data privacy and security risks, harmful content risks. So this is something too we need to speak on. We'll talk about later when we're talking about mental health. Ineffective system risks. So maybe you're like, it takes you actually longer to do the task with AI than it would have taken before. Malicious use risk, and then misinformation, hallucinations, transparency and explainability risk. So for example, if you use AI to write your whole report, are you able to say that you actually are able to interpret your evaluation per IDA? And then are you able to explain it per IDA? and underprepared user risks. So this is also the people that are like, I'm never going to use AI, and then they use it and they use it incorrectly. Just know the bulk of the responsibility lies with the individual user. Selecting the best tool and ensuring tools are handling our sensitive data responsibly and securely, or to ensure compliance with relevant laws and regulations. There's not many laws related to AI yet, and I say yet because I know they're going to be coming, but we do need to follow our laws related to student data still. So there's some developers that have public documents about responsibility. I'm not going to go into each one significantly, but just know that there are some out there so you can learn about responsible AI use or responsible AI standards. And yes, please make sure you get the slides, because throughout the whole presentation, anytime there is a blue with a line, it's a hyperlink to a resource. So all of these are embedded so you can look into it deeper if you'd like. For example, Grammarly has shared its commitment to responsible innovation and development of AI. So if you want to learn and possibly explore Grammarly. And then there's the 7 principles for AI in education, and then there's the White House fact sheet. Really, when we're thinking about the risks in education, there's risks around inaccuracies and hallucinations. It can sound super confident, but it'll be incredibly wrong. Bias and fairness, it could reflect societal inequities. Privacy and security, they may say they're FERPA compliant, but yet they're using Amazon Web Servers and they're selling their data. Over-reliance risks, they don't let AI replace our thinking. And underprepared risks, so misunderstanding how AI works, misuse. So AI isn't neutral. So just know that, so there's a few school psychology faculty members that are doing a lot of research in the area of AI and special education and mental health. One of them is Adam Lockwood, and he's done some research around bias in AI. And so AI tools are rapidly entering education and school psychology specifically, especially around report writing. And while they can enhance efficiency, so data analysis, report writing, personalized supports, they can also reinforce systemic inequity. So AI reflects the biases of its creators and the limitations of training data. So it may have disproportionately flagged students of color for disciplinary or risk interventions, and may misinterpret dialects, language use, or cultural expressions. It may reinforce inequitable outcomes if not checked. And it's not a neutral tool. So we have to remember that when we're using it. It reflects the biases and limitations of its creators. Okay, here's my favorite activity. So what we hear a lot is we just have to X out the kid's name. We just have to not put the student's name. So we're going to play what is PII? What is personally identifiable information and which one's not? So the first example, let's decide, should we upload this into an AI platform or not? During reevaluation, Aiden, a 9-year-old at Maple Ridge Elementary, showed significant difficulty with working memory on the WISC-5 digit span equal 4. His teacher noted he often appears tired and distracted, and the BAS-3 indicated clinically significant attention problems. Lots of no's. Yes, lots of no's. Yeah, do not enter that one. Yeah, no. Great. Good work. Okay, let's do number 2. When completing psychoeducational evaluations, it's important to consider both cognitive and behavioral data. Many students benefit from structured routines, visual supports, and strategies to sustain attention. Is there any PII in there? No. And then can you upload it? Yes. You can upload that one. Yeah, it's acceptable. Okay, last one. A middle school student in a small rural district was reevaluated for ongoing reading concerns. The WJ4, BAS3, and CTOP2 showed average cognitive skills, but below average phonological awareness. The student receives reading intervention 3 times per week. Does that have PII? Can we upload it? Seeing less responses. Not sure. Okay, let's go and look at our answers. So the first one, it definitely has PII. We know that for sure. It includes the name, age, school, teacher, test results. We have to remember PII is not just a name. It's enough information or identifiers that we could figure out who that person is, right? So it's not just name. So it's a combination of identifiers, makes the student recognizable, especially in small districts. It violates FERPA, NASP ethics if uploaded, even with the name removed. Robin, tricky with small schools, yeah. So the middle one, entirely generalized, no identifiers, scores, or specific context, can be safely used for training, presentations, or AI rewording. Yes, so this one's fine to upload. It does not have PII. The last one is context dependent. So it's my favorite, it's gray. So it's generic on its own, but context can make it identifiable. Small school, unique test combo, safe if only written as a composite or illustrative example, not a real student record. And Jessica, it could with the rural statement. And so that's where we have to recognize when we're inputting information, it may think rural equals white, rural may equal X, right? Like, so we have to understand that sometimes those inputs are also putting it towards a certain pattern. So our prompts matter a lot. But yes, Robin, tricky with small school, because I even get this at CDE a lot. I say over and over and over again, no PII. Please do not ask me questions with PII. And they're like, I work at this middle school in this district, and I'm the school psych, and we're evaluating. And I'm like, I could pick that kid out already. Like, please stop, please stop. And so just know that it's not just a name. Okay, let's keep going. So where does AI live? So we've talked about servers a little bit, but understanding data centers and ownership. So AI models run on massive data centers. You probably have heard about them in the news. They specialized facilities that store and process data for tools like ChatGPT, Google Bard, Claude, all of the ones out there. And so then these are the common large technology companies that have these large data centers. So Amazon Web Services hosts many AI models for third-party companies. So smaller companies, most of them are using Amazon Web Services. Microsoft Azure Microsoft Azure powers OpenAI ChatGPT. Google Cloud hosts Gemini and other AI-based systems, and then Oracle, IBM, and Meta also operate AI-capable cloud infrastructures. So just know that it's not just all in the air. There are physical locations, and it's also, you also have to respect that, and that we're also giving this information to these companies. Why data centers matter. When AI is used in schools, data may be processed through third-party servers. So we talked earlier how we generally have our own servers, not directly controlled by the users or the school district. So this raises questions about data privacy and confidentiality. Who can access that information? Security and compliance with FERPA, HIPAA, and state privacy laws, transparency in how AI tools store or reuse or train future models or even sell data. So a really good example of this in the news recently, people are like, oh, they don't actually store the data. If you're following the case of the woman who was abducted in Arizona and her security cameras, like she did not have a subscription. So she thought her videos were not being stored. People thought, oh, she doesn't pay for a subscription. So her data is not being stored. When in reality it was, right? So that is something, that's an example where people are like, oh, they're not actually storing this. They don't keep it. Well, oftentimes they are. So that is where we have to really read the policies of what we're choosing to use. So always review the terms of service and data policies before using AI tools for sensitive, even semi-sensitive work. Even secure AI systems may rely on commercially cloud providers or global data storage networks. And that is where this information comes from. It's coming directly from them. It's coming directly from Amazon Web Services and OpenAI. They're saying it themselves. that you need to understand the policies and where their data is stored and how long it's stored and who has access to it. Okay, we're going to take a moment. Any questions about that before we move on to some other considerations? Has anyone read the policies of the AI platforms they're using? Yeah. Thank you for being honest. Yeah. Can the AI read it for me? I mean, yeah, but it might skip some stuff. Emailing for a copy, yeah. Especially if it's going to be like your district platform, or if you're using it for any semi-sensitive information, you need to. Like if you're using it for recipes, I don't care, right? Like if you're using it for recipes, if you're using it to help plan or like structure your family activities, whatever, right? Like, but that's where we go back to if you're not okay with it being on the front page of Amazon, you really need to understand their data storage. So Dave, that depends on the platform. They hold your data even if you delete the chat up to 90 days, if I remember correctly. That depends. So I know there's some state agencies that their platform gets wiped every 10 days. Ours gets wiped, aka with all of our digital platforms, every 14 days. So it depends on the platform and what your contract looks like. So it could be 90 days, it could be 10 days, it could be 30 days, it could be never. Another big one to look for is if it's being sold. So is your information being given to anyone else? Okay. Additionally, this is a topic some people bring up every time when I talk about this, and I just want to acknowledge it and know that we don't fully understand the environmental impacts of AI. So why does it impact the environment so much? There's energy use, so training AI uses a lot of electricity, sometimes as much as 100 homes. There's e-waste and rare materials, so like all the physical things to create the servers. The data centers rely on really rare earth minerals. The hardware turnover adds to tech waste, so it's a higher turnover rate. Water use, so one ChatGPT session uses up to around 500 milliliters of water. Water cools the servers, often pulled from local supplies. So people always ask about the water. Why is water? Often, if you go into a server room, it has to be cold. Like the servers have to stay cold to be running properly, right? So if we have a server room here in Colorado and it's 100 degrees outside, it's using water to cool down so it can stay operational. So there's a lot of media out there. So if this is something you're just hearing about for the first time, I know Dateline has done some research on this, had a variety of news stories around the water supply being impacted for local people, especially in smaller rural communities, because it's not creating more water, it's just taking the water that the locals used to have. And then why it matters is AI is not just a cloud, it's infrastructure, it's physical infrastructure, as well as the technology infrastructure, and then there are environmental impacts. Yeah, so just know that these are things that if you've not heard of before, I would recommend going and exploring. And there are some differing reports out there about how much water and the environmental impacts. I don't know, Claire, if it's unusable after, right? So this is also where, so different people are reporting different things of there's no increase in water, and well, you are an AI company, of course you're going to say that. So just know that there's multiple reports out there. So I would look at it, look into it. I'm not even 100% sure of what the long-term impacts are going to be. I don't think we all I don't think anyone knows what the long-term impacts are going to be. Additionally, some infrastructure as a social justice issue. So there's a community burden. So often data centers are built in rural, low-income Texas, East Colorado. There's one being built by close-ish to my hometown farm in North Dakota. Locals face noise, water loss, and increased energy demands. So this is also something that you should look up online. So often there's like a pretty loud humming noise that's coming from the data centers. So if you live in that area, that's never going to go away. It's like noise pollution. Resource competition, so water and power is diverted from communities to tech facilities. No local job boost or tax relief in many areas, so it doesn't bring many jobs in, it just brings the building. Unequal impacts, so communities carry the cost, companies reap the benefits. Decisions often are made without local input. Why it matters in education is AI use intersects with equity and social justice. It also helps students think critically about where tech lives and who it affects. Had anybody heard or thought of these considerations before? I know there's some communities in Colorado that have been talking about this. Oh, thank you, Robin. There's a podcast that Science versus AI is at ruining the environment. Some. Text in here. Yep. Yeah, and that's where it's how much are you using it, what are you using it for? Yep. Yeah, a lot of people are hearing about the energy side. I also hear about like the noise pollution side a lot because I don't know, but for you, if I grew up in a rural community, and part of the beauty of my farm is there's no noise, none at all, besides the animals and like the wind. And so if AI data center moved in and there was a loud humming all the time, I would be upset. Yes, husband works for rural electric. Yep, there are some people that want to build out in rural Colorado. Yep. Okay, we're gonna keep going. Additionally, there's some additional research that's going on around AI's impact on professional skills. So Ryan Farmer is another school psychology faculty member. He works at the University of Memphis. He is amazing in this area. If there's anyone that I'd recommend for you to go and read, or if you're really interested in this, even email him. He is fantastic. I talked to him at the National Association for School Psychology Conference, and his goal is just to help people understand. He's like, we can't stop people from using AI, but he's like, we need to help people understand how to use it well. But he's really worried about what's called de-skilling. So where essential skills like critical thinking may weaken. I know, for example, my spelling has weakened because I will just brain dump what I want to say out. And I'm not worried about spelling anymore when I'm typing. I'm just dumping it out into Grammarly. And then I worry about, I'll use the tool to help me fix my spelling. The reason why I bring up de-skilling is because for you all, in legislation, in IDA, especially around special education evaluations, in the law, it says we have to be able to a qualified professional to administer and interpret. So we cannot rely on a tool to interpret. We have to be able to interpret the data. If we cannot interpret the data, we could be in violation of IDA or a misinterpretation of data. So just understanding that if we de-skill and I no longer know how to interpret data as part of a special education evaluation, that could be a problem. Or if I no longer know how to explain it, that could be a problem. Automation bias can cause overtrust in AI outputs, undermining independent judgment, and then maintaining skill through manual practice is recommended to balance AI's benefits with professional expertise. So this was research that they did in 2024, so 2 years ago, but Ryan Farmer has many publications since then. So again, I would highly recommend any of his work. He also does trainings in PD. Okay, hallucinations. In the chat, has anybody heard AI hallucinations before today? Yes, no. Oh, we got some no's. Yes, no. So yes and no, we got both sides. Okay, so an AI hallucination occurs when the systems generate an inaccurate or fabricated information as if it was factual. Dave, you observed them. We're actually going to try and get our platforms to hallucinate in a minute. So just know hallucinations happen often. A Stanford study found that AI legal research tools hallucinated in 17% of their queries and prompts. 17%. That is way more than people think. Is that more than you thought or less than you thought? More, yeah. More, less, yep. So there's actually been there's been some cases where lawyers are using AI to help, and then they cite cases that don't exist. That's an example of an AI hallucination. So best practice is we have to always verify AI generated content and use AI as a support tool, not as a sole source. And so if you do want to read about that research, it's out of the Stanford study on AI hallucinations in Law Next. And this is why we don't really recommend using AI as a generative source, like as a creation or source. Like I'm not going to use it like how I treat like a tool where I would look up. I'm not going to use it like an encyclopedia. I'm not going to use it like a dictionary. I'm not going to use it where I'm looking things up. It needs to be used as a tool, not as a source. So chatbots may seem authoritative, but they're not always reliable. Please double or triple check. And then it's better suited for creative exploration or support, not for fact-finding or research. And that's from the US Department of Education. Oh, let's go ahead to the hallucination. We'll come back to that one. Okay. So Beth brings up a good point. Notebook LM will pull from the source you give it, right? Does that make it safer in this regard? Will it still hallucinate? So Beth brings up a different type of AI. So I didn't really go deep into this, but there's a couple types of AI tools. So generative AI is where it's pulling from the whole internet. So ChatGPT, it's pulling from the whole internet. Notebook LM is like a limited language model. So LLM. Limited language model means you are giving it the data. So I've actually done this. I've uploaded like ECA, IDA. I've uploaded all of our publicly facing eligibility guidance documents. I've uploaded everything special ed that I love and I see as a best source. And I can type in there, where in these documents does XYZ? What does XYZ say on this? And it'll pull and it'll tell me where it does exist in the documents I've uploaded. So in a Notebook LM, you give it the data, it's allowed to search. So an example is like the CDE website. There's a chatbot on our website. And I'll try and lower my hand. Okay. On the CDE website, there is a chatbot. Oh, large language model. Thank you. So CDE's website, it only looks at CDE's website for the source. So it's not looking at the whole internet. So there's a couple different AI methods. Just know that there's pros and cons to each. I know a lot of people who are using Notebook LM and they're uploading things in there. I was talking to a faculty member and they were uploading all their syllabi, all their content, and they're using it to make their course better for their graduate level course. I know people, but again, there's no PII in there. I know people who are using it to help them, like my friend who's a real estate agent. She's uploading all of her real estate, not the contracts, but all of her like social media and marketing, and it's helping her like strategize and improve that. So I would say a notebook is very different than a large, like a ChatGPT, because that's looking at everything. Okay, we're going to do our hallucination activity. So what I want you to do is go to your AI of choice And I want you to see if you can get your AI platform to hallucinate. And so the easiest way I've found for it to do this is asking for 3 research articles on a topic of your choosing with authors, journal names, and publication years. And then what you do is you cross search what it gives you in like Google Scholar. So I want you to then search like for this journal article in Google Scholar just to verify and vet if it's real. So I will do it along with you. So I'm going to search, can you list, let's do 5, research articles on functional behavior assessments with authors, journal names, and publication years. Okay, so I have 5 articles that came up. So Dave has the way to make sure it doesn't hallucinate is by asking for the links. So I want you to think, I want you to look through, are these articles real? Do you have any hallucinations? So we have one person who has legitimate articles. I would say it gave me legitimate articles, but my articles are from 2001 and 2002, like from 25 and 26 years ago. Oh. Yours are all real and from 2024. Okay. It was a huge problem 2 years ago. It's gotten better. It's gotten better. But almost always we're able to get a couple people who have hallucination. I actually did this with my internal team at CDE. And so my internal team is called the ALL team, the Access Learning and Literacy team. And so we support special education across the state. And Hunter Smith, one of my colleagues, did this. And he's like, wait, Krista, I didn't know you were published. I'm like, I'm not. I'm not published. And that's when it made up the article that I had written an article in the school psychology journal on special education evaluation. So Krista, you got real articles and links. Okay. Another way I've seen it often hallucinate, I thought I was going to be really smart and I was going to use ChatGPT and an AI platform to help me with my fantasy hockey draft and my fantasy football draft. And it could not understand of like active players. So it would give me players from like 5 years ago. It was giving me players from like 3 years ago. I was like giving it all these prompts. I'm like, look at the active 52-man roster on each NFL's website. And it like could not do that like active real-time data analysis where I wanted it to give me like the best people today for my fantasy draft. So Amy has real links and publications, but from 2001 to 19. Hannah had one, but the article existed, but it changed the name slightly. Melinda's were real, but not or what she was really targeting. She should have had a clear prompt. Ooh, so Kristen's, yours hallucinated. It gave you the authors that have worked together and published in that year, but had the wrong title or the wrong article. So again, that's a really good example of it's pattern recognition, right? So it's recognizing that those people are frequent authors or are authors on that topic and it looks like they have worked together, and it was extrapolating, it was continuing that pattern down that they also wrote on X. Maybe they only wrote on Y. So yours knows yours is an SLP, so it's sneaky. Any thoughts, wonderings? Anyone want to share how it's hallucinated for you? I know a few people have noted that you've had hallucinations in the past. Recipes, wrong measurements. Yeah, so Robin, most LLMs, so most of our large language models are trained on data that's old, right? So they're not up to date with the current timeline, i.e. why my fantasy football and hockey draft was not going to be possible. So most of the data is from a few years ago. The companies do claim they are looking at real time, but I don't fully trust that or believe that. So Sylvia hallucinated when I was budgeting with math totals. It did good with the recommended percentages, but not real numbers. Fake names in a post during a course I was taking. Ooh, sometimes the info it gives me contradicts earlier generations, meaning it hallucinated at least once. This was an activity I did with my nephews. Like I sat down with them. So they're 12 and 14, preteen, teen, young boys. And I sat down with them and I wanted them to see how it could be wrong. I wanted them to see concretely where it could work and where it's wrong. And it was very helpful for them to see that they can't trust it 100% of the time. Because for them, they are using AI in their school. They're trying to use it like as a tool. And I wanted them to understand that, going back to my calculator metaphor earlier, they have to understand that they can't just automatically assume the output is correct. If my brother inputs a very complicated equation on a calculator, he's going to be able to estimate if that's correct. I'm not. Like with AI, I can input something around education. I will be able to estimate if that's a correct output. My brother will not. Yeah. So I think that's where this is an example of an activity or an idea to show people the limitations. And then also, I do want you to know how to use it well. So we've been talking a lot about some bad and like the negatives and consequences. We are going to go into how to use it well, but we also have to know where it doesn't work well. Anything else on hallucinations before we go back to a few previous slides? Any other questions, wonderings about hallucinations? Kristen, you would hope it's common knowledge in upper grades, but this is why AI literacy is important. So if our teachers don't understand that these things hallucinate, our students aren't going to understand that. Okay, we're going to go back a few slides. Okay, so this is something that more and more information is coming out about and research is coming out about. And this is something that actually concerns me more than plagiarism and hallucinations, but AI chatbots and the psychological impacts. So just understanding mental health providers, they're describing cases where chatbot interactions have contributed to paranoid beliefs, spiritual or supernatural delusions, grandiose beliefs about world-changing discoveries, romantic or personal misinterpretations or messages. So that's from New York Times. They did an investigation where they were interviewing psychologists and therapists from across the United States and understanding AI impact on their clients. This comes from the National Center for Democracy and Technology, and they've been doing research around the students' use of AI. And this is the one that scares me. So it says emerging student use patterns. So 42% of high school students say that they know someone who has used AI for companionship. So for a relationship, as a friend, as a partner. And nearly 1 in 5 students report that they or someone they know has had a romantic relationship with AI, and that 85% of students, educators, and 75% of parents report using AI during the past school year. So what scares me is the personification of AI and people not understanding that it is a pattern recognition software tool, but a person, and thinking that it's a person, right? So it's going to reinforce your ideas. It's going to reinforce what you put in. It's going to reinforce the pattern. And so it's not going to fact check. It's not going, like, as a school psychologist, it's not going to reground that student or fact check them in facts. It's not going to ask them what's reality versus not reality, right? And so there's a lot of concerning information coming out around mental health and AI and students' overuse of AI. Some concerns were increased exposure to deep fakes as well, and AI-enabled harassment. So just understanding that there's supposed to be blockers, and I'm using quotations here, they're supposed to be blockers. I can get around the blockers, right? So if I'm on a platform, I, within like 4 or 5 prompts, can get to something that I should not be able to get to. I just have to say I'm a school psychologist and I'm doing this for research, and I can generally get around their protections. So that means our students could be getting around the protections as well. And so there's just understanding our students may have access to content that we would want them to have limited access to. Data privacy risks. Obviously, students use AI for mental health support or escape instead of talking to an actual human. And then some students report feeling less connected to teachers. Yeah, so Jerry, that is true. So there is a very large lawsuit that's happening with ChatGPT because a student was asking the platform of how to die by suicide, and they were able to get around the blockers, and it gave them the exact steps, and there was no protection. There was no, like, you need to call the suicide hotline. It just gave them everything on how to do it. And so that's like a tame version of what I've been hearing. And so unfortunately, when I'm thinking about AI, we have to think about it has everything, right? So it has anything and everything and all the good and the bad things. And so we have to think about, do we want our students to have access to all of the things? Not always. So yeah, there is a very large lawsuit against ChatGPT specifically because of that incident. Yeah, and then the companionship one, so that children's media safety and mental health orgs have strongly advised minors to avoid AI as companions. And 72% of teens report using them as a companion at least once, and then 1 in 3 report using AI companionship for social interaction, relationship, emotional support, role playing, conversation practice, which again, we have to remember, it's pattern recognition. So it's not going to be best practice in what it's responding to the student. It's going to be pattern recognition of what the prompt they put in. So what risks might emerge when students use AI for emotional support? I know we don't have any, I don't think we had any school psychs or social workers in here, but what risks do you think we have, even just for any kind of support, friendship support, emotional support? What risks might we have in a school? Isolation. Definitely isolation. I see a lot of situations where they're seeing the chat as factual and their friends and family, they don't believe them now. Depression, lack of social skills, isolation, real life companionship. Self-diagnosis, yeah. It feeds you what you want to hear. Yes. It's pattern recognition. It's feeding what you want to hear. It really is like a narcissist's best friend. It's going to continue to feed into what you're thinking. It's not going to stop you and fact check you. Echo chamber for thoughts that they already have. Yes. Whether they are real or not, they both just reiterate the same points and helps them see if they're logical. Yeah, doesn't matter if they're logical. It's just going to reinforce them. Detachment, bad and ineffective mental health advice in the form of hallucinations, delusions, and going, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've seen situations where it's the advice it's giving, I'm like, what? I'm like, that is not what you should be doing. They aren't real, misinformation, misconceptions. Yes, even not encouraging people to reach out. Yes. Yeah, so just know that the reason why we're talking about these things is not for you to be like, no, don't use it completely. It's for that you have to understand the complexity of when you should be using it, when you shouldn't be using it, especially around, I think about some of our students who are the most fragile, or our students who are the most like imposable, like they are going to just really latch on, like they're not going to be able to understand the differences. And if they have autism, or if they have like significant mental health issues already, they're going to be a higher likelihood of having some of these issues if they're using AI inappropriately. This is a conversation that came up at NASP, the National Association of School Psychology Conference. Adding a question into suicide risk assessments and threat assessments around the use of AI, because it's now just like a common thing. Like, did you ask AI these questions? Have you used AI? Did AI give you the directions or the steps? And so just know that that has been an interesting conversation that I've been having with some other people around. Now we just have to integrate it into some of our risk assessments because it increases risk for a student. Okay, we did this activity. Okay, we've been talking a lot about like the bad risks. Now we're going to talk about like AI use in every day. So just know that there are ways that you can integrate it into your life where it works well. And I think about it as a secretary or as an assistant or as a tool to help you reduce your cognitive load. It should not replace your professional brain. It should not replace your professional judgment, but it is a really good tool when you need help organizing, when you need help synthesizing, when you need help reducing reading level. And we're going to talk about some real ways that you can use AI, especially if you're newer. So then you can build up some understanding before you use it for work or in a more like a higher concerning or like risk environment. Okay. So how I use AI, right? So how do I actually use it? Professional writing and editing, improving clarity and tone in emails, summarizing articles and reports. So I like to read a lot of research articles, but I want to know if it is good before I read the 35 pages. And so I'll upload an article and tell me to give me the key points, and then I'll look through the key points. And then if I'm interested, and then I continue to go and read all 35 pages. Adjusting reading level for different audiences. So this is something I use it for all the time. So for example, most of our guidance documents that are public facing on the CDE website are college level reading. So that means it's not really that accessible to most adults. Most adults are at about 5th to 8th grade reading level. I've been really trying to get anything that we're publishing or I'm publishing or a part of down to about an 8th grade reading level. And so that means I can take a public facing document and upload it and help. I can't take it one-to-one, like I can't take what it's actually saying every time because sometimes it mixes up the word where it changes meaning, but I can use some of the suggestions to help lower the reading level. So this is also something that I've talked with teams a lot about, because our special education evaluations are also college level reading. I would personally never recommend using a tool for most of your special education evaluation. For your cognitive section, social emotional section, there's too much PII in there. But if you're able to have a truly de-identified family-friendly summary section and have it help you rewrite it in a parent-friendly way, that is a tool that you could, or a way you could use it. Specifically around making that summary, especially family friendly. But again, it has to be for sure de-identified. And then organization and planning. So turning meeting notes into agendas, action steps, drafting project plans and templates. So like, I want to do X, Y, Z. What do I need? What are other things that I'm not thinking of? Creating outlines for training sessions, creating content for PD. So this is like where I really have to check for bias and information. So I can do sample case studies. So I input a ton of information and I make up a fake student, and then it'll output a student. But then I have to check, oh, what's the name? Is that ooh, do I like that name? And then I generally change it again, and then I'm changing it again. So I'm not taking it automatic, but it'll help me write up a case study to get people thinking. Building reflection prompts and journal questions for people to process and think through. Rewording content for family-friendly communication. So again, I did a training at Parents Encouraging Parents, PEP, and I tend to be like, yeah, I'm very family-friendly in my language. I'm always using descriptive words. I'm not using jargon. So I uploaded my PEP PowerPoint into the platform and asked, like, could you point out any language that is not family friendly? And it like blew up. It was like this word, this word, this word. And so it called me out on some words that I was like, oh yeah, I kind of just assume people know what that means, and I needed to not assume. And so it helped me make my presentation more accessible to families, because then I was able to go through and revise those slides or statements and make sure that the families I was presenting to were gonna be able to understand the content. Everyday uses: planning weekly meals, creating grocery lists, designing vacation itineraries, creating simple fitness routines and workout schedules. Ooh, Trudy. She wanted to share the actual statement from her nephew who has autism. I think AI understands me better than most people do. People just don't understand my problems. Even when I try to explain them in precise detail, it's pointless because it'll all go in one ear and out the other. They just can't relate, and I'll just get unhelpful advice. AI, on the other hand, analyzes my every word and takes it all the data and it needs in order to generate a perfect answer, and it never gets tired of me, even when I keep having the same problems. That's hard, because I agree, right? Like, he probably feels that way, and he probably is being validated, so it feels good, and he feels he's being heard, but then at the same time, we also know it's like a self-fulfilling validation. And so that's exactly what I'm more scared of now with AI versus people using it for reports. If you use it for a report as a professional, great, that's your choice. You chose that, you have to deal with that. I'm now more worried about our young friends who are more in a vulnerable position, in a vulnerable state, and worried about their interactions with AI. Thank you for sharing, Trudy. That's an example of what I was trying to get at, and perfectly explains how it can feel very good for them, but yes, we know it's not a great tool. Okay, some additional, so these are the ways I use AI on a day-to-day basis. This is when I don't use the AI. So I have very firm boundaries and rules around when I allow myself to use AI, when I do not allow myself to use AI. And I also am open with my colleagues and my boss, and anyone I'm working with around when and when I do not use AI. Sensitive topics, no. It lacks the personal touch, accuracy. It lacks just like the tact. It also lacks the emotional intelligence. Real-time info, like we talked about earlier, it's not always up to date. It's generally 2 years behind in data. So real-time info, it doesn't access current events or updates. Specialized language, it can often misinterpret key terms. We have weird words, right? So we know in education, I think about like in the assistive technology world, in higher education, in mental health, we have all these terms that mean one thing to us that in the lay population may mean another thing. And so oftentimes those things can be misinterpreted. The easiest example was it was often changing special education to unique education because they thought that was a better word, when in reality we were talking about special education as a whole, not that the education was special. So just understand that it can often change things where it changes the actual meaning. Emotional support cannot replace human empathy. Ethical decisions is not suited for complex judgment. It doesn't understand all the factors. So I think about the use with like a report, special education evaluation report, or like with thinking about like a student, it's never going to understand all the factors. Like we talked about prompts, you would have to put in a lot of information, right? Understanding the culture, understanding their background, understanding what you've tried, what you've not tried, understanding how that student interacted with you during the testing, understanding how that student interacts with certain adults. So it's never going to be the best for those things, but it could be helpful for like possibility generation. So I think about, for example, if you're struggling with a student and you're like, we're stuck. What are some other accommodations we could do? It can give you a really, really long list of accommodations. And then your team would have to go through and like, oh, we tried that one, that didn't work, or that one worked for our context, or this one would help, or this one, that's not really going to help their need, right? So understanding it could come up with some ideas, but it's not going to be, you cannot allow it to make the final decision. The personalized feedback, so it's too general for individual context. Creative voice, it struggles with unique or artistic styles. So if you have a certain voice, if you have a certain tone, often people can catch that it's not your voice in an email, or it's not your voice that's being presented when in writing. And then again, I'm not using it for private info, PII, personally identifiable information. So this is when I'm restricting. We talked about earlier, prompts matter. So the way you ask is the quality of what you get. So simplify the text for a general audience, right? So if I upload a reading passage and ask it to simplify to a certain reading level, or if I ask it to give bullets, the better the prompt, the better the output. Summarize this document in 3 key points. Make this email sound clear and supportive. Give me 3 reflection questions based on this topic. Adjust this text to a 6th grade reading level. Create a plain language version of this explanation. Write a follow-up message with action steps. Give feedback to improve clarity and flow. So understanding that your prompt, or what you ask of it, what you put in is what you're going to get out. The more information, honestly, the better. And I know a lot of people really like the voice to text version, as people have noted before, because then you can kind of just dump in and it'll give you a better output. So communicating clearly with AI. So we're going to go through a couple examples of how you could use it well in your practice, in your day-to-day. So using it to refine your writing, tone, clarity, grammar, and emails. So if the email does not have any personally identifiable information, what I generally recommend is write the email and then say, help me refine this so that it's clear. Help me refine this so this is warm and friendly. Sometimes I come off a little curt, short in my email. I'm like, do this. I need this done and this done and this done. I tend to be a little bit too to the point. So I have to ask mine to be warm and friendly. 'Cause generally I'm too much to the point. Adjust reading level for staff or family communication, or make it family friendly. Rewrite content for accessibility or inclusive language. Has anyone done this with emails? Has anyone used AI to help you write emails? Many times, yeah. 100%. Yes. So I have a listserv that I send a lot of things on. And so for me, it's kind of like a fact check, like a make sure I'm spelling everything right, make sure my grammar is correct. So I'm always going to type everything out I want, and then I'll put it in whatever platform I'm using, and I'll say, make this warm and friendly and clear. Or you could say, like, here, rewrite this email to sound clear and supportive for a family audience, parent friendly, to keep a certain tone in emails. Yep. Clear, concise, and friendly, inviting, professional, to check tone. Sometimes it can be a little too excited, or I'll add emojis, or sometimes it'll add things and I'm like, oh no. So you always have to read it. Yeah, so all the AI underlines in Gmail are making me nuts. It's too much sometimes. Yeah, so you'll notice that AI really likes to bold, use em dash, and underline a lot. And so they add things in that are kind of like telltale signs. So a lot of bolding, a lot of bullets, a lot of the use of the em dash, and then a lot of use of underlining. And so that is one thing, anytime those are popping up, I'm immediately taking all that out because it feels very AI when those pop up. So some additional ways you can use AI for communication is condensing long documents into key points. So let's say, for example, I have some colleagues that are like very verbose. They will write 3-page emails. I'm like, what do you want me to do? What are the key points? I'm more of a bullet, straight to it person. And so it might be that, let's say, for example, if you have a really long directions of how to do everything, maybe you use, and it's public information, you use that to convert it to bullets of steps. It could be drafting plain language overviews for families. So I think about, like, what is the WISC? What what is assistive technology? What is alternative communication, right? So it can help you with your professional expertise develop a plain language, parent-friendly overview so the family has an easier time understanding. And it can help create quick takeaways from policies or reports. So anything, again, public facing. So I think about, like, I sometimes will upload things that I'm like, what are the key points? What do I need to know from this document? And then if there's something wonky, I'll read it all the way through. Anyone else have any tips for communication with AI? Any other communication strategies that you guys have used? Any other unique ways you've used AI for communication? Yeah, so start your prompt saying never use an em dash or best regards in my emails. Yeah. Yeah, I don't like best regards. That doesn't feel like me. Fun fact, I did use an em dash back in the day because my grandma was an English professor, but now I don't use them because people think I'm using them because of AI. Yes, and plain text paste in. So this is a good point Dave brings up. So I never advocate for you to do, like, so for example, if you're writing the email, like copying it over, and then if you're going to bring it back into your original document, you should write control paste plain text. Because if you just do control P or like regular paste, it's going to include all the formatting. And that's like there's a lot of wonky formatting, and that's also a telltale sign you're using AI. Laura recommends Goblin for judging tone in emails and text. Great. Thanks for that suggestion. I've not used Goblin, right? So there's certain tools that I've used a lot. There's certain tools that I've not used at all. So that's a good recommendation. Thank you. Yeah, and that's the thing, Tammy. M dash is appropriate if you know when to use them. And I used to use them often, and then I no longer use them because I feel like I'm being called out for AI use. Oh, using AI to generate an image text. Yeah, we're going to talk about images in a little bit. Okay, using it for planning and organizing. So AI is really good for planning, organizing information, and helping your students with planning and organizing. So thinking for you, thinking for staff, turning messy notes into agendas and action items, even like student messy notes. It can take pictures and it can reorganize it into a readable, accessible Word doc. Building phased project plans and timelines. So for students, building project timelines for, I have a science fair project. What are all my steps of the science fair project? What are all my steps for writing a paragraph? It can break everything down into a task analysis, which can be very helpful if you have executive functioning difficulties as an adult or student. Organizing goals into a checklist or a template. So for example, I have to make goals every year. And so will put my goals into my AI platform, and it'll output the exact measurable item under each. And then I'm able to have that document, and then I can check off as I go once I've completed them as a tracking document. Drafting training outlines or PD reflections. So if you have to do professional development, it can help you with an outline for activities, help you with an outline for a unit, for lessons. This is one that if you don't know, one of my favorite ways is it can help you create alt text for slides and charts and images. So you can upload an image and say, provide me with alternative text for this image in 50 words or less. Please be descriptive for someone using a screen reader. And so you have to read it, but it is a great way. Yes. Yeah, it's a great way to get you started, especially if it's a complex image and there's a lot of things going on. So just know that is a unique way you can use to help build up accessibility. Yeah, and Jerry brings up you can use AI-based remove background feature in the Photos app on Apple to help emphasize the main subject of a photo. So removing the exterior around, you also can do that in Canva. Canva also has a tool where you can remove the exterior around an image. So for example, I don't know where it is in the slides, but I have a lot of colleagues that are using AI to help create social stories for students. With parental consent, they've integrated a picture of the student into a social story of the student doing X and Y and doing the task analysis of what they need to do. So like the coat drop off in the morning and end of day checkout, what does that need? And they can integrate in whatever their interest is, or you can integrate in the student. So that is something that I've seen people use AI in a very creative way to help students be successful and then also see themselves in that place and completing that task. And it could save a lot of time. Yeah, so it's not going to be perfect right away. So just know that when I've tried it with social stories, I will often forget a step, or it'll like skip a step. So then you'll have to like, oh, we need this too, or step. You might need to break it down for them. Ooh, Hannah says Gemini Storybook is a great resource for social stories. Yeah, and Robin says she really likes Notebook LM for slide generation based on evidence-based information that I have control over, but editing the slides is a bit of a pain. Yep. Yeah, and then I have another friend who did this with her kindergarten class with parental consent. She made, she had a picture of the student, and then they took and converted it into a picture of them as their future career endeavor so that they could see them doing that job. So seeing them as an astronaut, seeing them as an engineer, seeing them as that role. And then the students were using that as a writing prompt of how they wanted to become astronaut, engineer, whatever it may be. Great examples. So like this prompt example is review this PowerPoint and suggest edits to better align with the session objectives and improve clarity. So for example, you could upload a PowerPoint and say, do I have any misspellings? Do I have anything wrong in here? Is there anything that the flow is off? So that's an example of how you could use it in a day-to-day. I love all the examples in the chat. Thank you. So creating resources, so creating journal prompts, discussion questions for students, building case samples, case studies, building checklists, rubrics, or simple activity sheets for students. So I did many social stories, checklists, rubrics in my career as a school psychologist. This is where this can be a really great tool to help create those things. So maybe you're creating a rubric for a student on task behavior. What does that look like? It can help you create that rubric. Or a checklist for the student, for them, of what they need to complete when they go home at the end of the day, of what they need to put away. And then rewording guidance for specific audiences. So for example, let's say you have things that are public facing, but you want to reword it to be more family friendly. And then adapting materials for staff, family, and students. So adapting it either visually or adapting it in language or adapting it in how it's organized. That is one of the ways you can use it really well. Of converting this to a bullet, converting this to a flow chart, converting this to a visual representation so that people have an easier way of how to understand it. And then Hannah says, for students, I asked AI how it could be a writing tutor for a student, and it gave me a prompt to use. That way the student can say, I want to write about octopus, and AI would ask it to follow up questions to guide their writing without doing any of the writing for the student. I really like it for helping create organizers, processing guides, breaking steps down, breaking something big down into more concrete, attainable items. Like, what is the topic going to be? Octopus. What do we know about octopus, right? Like, really, can you break it down so it can help a student eventually come up with a larger product? Because oftentimes students are so overwhelmed with the end goal that they don't know where to start. Does anyone else have examples that they would want to share of how you used it thus far? Robin shared an example of a tutorial around how to make social stories. Thank you. Progress monitoring. So this is where it can help you fact check your goals and your progress monitoring. That doesn't include student information, right? Is my goal measurable? How could I progress monitor this goal? You can't, it shouldn't do it for you, but it can help you write the goal. It can help you figure out how to progress monitor. It can figure out how to do what you want to do. So that is a good example, Sally. We see a lot of situations where goals are not actually measurable, or there's not actually a way to monitor them. And so it could be a helpful way to fact check yourself so that you can do that. So we have somebody use it for adapted PE to generate a checklist for students to keep track on their data. Grade level stories loaded with specific sounds. So it generate higher level vocabulary words with a particular sound. I love that. So they're working on a particular sound and practicing a sound, but it's grade level. And it could even be on a topic of their interest too. So for the rubric for on-task behavior, I generally do say age, grade level, what's the end goal, or like what's the target behavior? I'm giving the definition of the target behavior. And then it's helping me create a rubric of like, what would a 5, what would a 0 be? And this is where too, you might get an output that you're like, ooh, that's not quite right. And you'd have to go back in and revise it. Did that answer your question, Kristen? Generally and then even for like, I even think about like task analysis. So like sometimes I forget about steps in a task analysis. It can help you like, help me break down all these steps for a student coming to school and going into kindergarten, right? So walking in the door, putting the jacket away, but you have to take off your backpack first, right? So it can help you break down every step. And then we have another EDU Gems is a page worth checking out if you use Gemini. Great. I love all these examples people are sharing. Okay, we're going to keep going. Please continue to share your examples because I love hearing about how other people are using it. Yep, Magic School has some tools around rubric generators for content, curriculum. And then for you all, what I would recommend is practicing in everyday life or during low risk activities, right? So if you're not familiar with AI, if this is something super, super new for you, I would recommend trialing it before you dive in deep with school stuff or work stuff. So like we did at the beginning, planning meals, grocery lists, travel itinerary, weekend plans, workout or wellness routines, helping organize a cleaning or chore schedule, checklist, planning monthly budgets or expense tracking, but like somebody noted earlier, you'll have to double check the math. Write reminders or labels for home projects. And that's an example prompt. Anybody using Glint by NerdChat, AI for picture supported materials? I've actually not heard of that one at all. Glint is amazing. Tammy likes it. Great. And this is where there's so many new tools out there that it's honestly overwhelming the amount of things that are coming out. So please keep sharing because I don't know all of them. Okay, we're going to do another activity. So this is another way I really like using ChatGPT, and this is actually a way that I know my nephew's school uses it as well. They use it to help modify reading, modify things that they're being asked to read to a lower reading level without changing the content theoretically of the writing sample. And so what I want you to do is go to a document, something you use regularly. It even could be an article on like a news article. And then what I want us to do is copy paste and put it into your AI platform. And I want you to ask, what is the reading level of this text? Suggest 3 ways to simplify it for a broader audience or simplify it to be family friendly. Like for example, you could take your district policy document or your welcome back to school or something on your district webpage. Internally at CD, I'd everybody take their guidance document that they have that's public facing and test out the reading level and then give it 3 ways to suggest to lower it. So I'm gonna give everybody some time to test out the reading level and to change the reading level of the document that you've chosen. Okay, I'm doing a press release from CDE. I'm going to test our reading level and see what it is. My platform already knows me and it says, do you want me to rewrite this to be 8th to 9th grade reading level? The press release that I just tested was 12th to college level. Anyone get their reading level yet? Procedural safeguards. Post-grad, yep. And Jennifer, if you're using the procedural safeguards that CDE has put out recently, the updated version, that was us bringing it down. The old procedural safeguards was like advanced post-grad reading level. We have a post-grad 8th to 10th grade. Anyone else get their reading level? And this also can be done in Grammarly. So this is so not just like larger AI platforms, but Grammarly does this as well. Ooh, so if you have someone with very low reading levels, what is the best AI platform to use to ask it to add visuals where appropriate? Well, it depends. So if you're using it for, honestly, if you're using it for work, I'm going to say the best AI platform is whatever platform your district uses. So if your district uses, and like for we use Copilot, so that would be my best option because that's the more advanced paid option. So whatever platform you have that's paid, I do know Magic School can be helpful. And then I know, but visuals are hard to add in the right location. Yeah, many work well, but it's like where you'll probably have to tell it which ones to do. So Krista noted AI can summarize any book you put in the title and author. Yep. So this is something that for reading level accessibility, being more accessible just to our families in general, accessible to our colleagues. I think about we have so many behavior intervention plans that are so complex. I'm not going to upload the BIP, but I'm going to enter in here are the main strategies that our paraprofessionals need to know about. Can you give me like a 1-page 4 paras on how they need to support this child? So thinking through how we can make that so our paraprofessionals really understand what they're being asked to do. Yep, so Robin tried their parent handbook, which was rated at 12th grade to college, and Gemini says it relies heavily on education needs. Yes. And so that's actually something we are actively trying to, anytime we are editing or revising documents at CDE, we're also checking reading level now and how can we bring it down. And we're not going to be able to bring it down to 5th grade or 6th grade or even 7th grade sometimes without changing the meaning or taking out content. So we try to just get it at least to like 10th grade, 9th grade reading level. And we don't take it always for what it says because sometimes we don't like how it words things. So I always ask for suggestions, Robin, of like, how could I bring this down? Has anyone used this in school to change, to provide a different reading passage for a student? Yep. So the online school you work with does all the time, modify content to reading level. Yep. Yep. Ooh, Michelle, you've shared the Magic School text leveler with staff. Yeah. I've even seen students use it that they have to get it up to a reading level. So they're working on their writing. And so it was my nephew. He was working on his writing, and his assignment was he had to write at an X reading level. So his passage, which had to be 500 words, had to be up to a 500 words, 8th grade reading level in his writing. And they were allowed to use Grammarly, and then they had to do a summary afterwards of how Grammarly helped them and made it easier or how it was hard to bring it up. Robin's used graphic novel tutorial to make accessible version with pictures. Yeah, so Kristen's tried the ASHA guidelines. It gave you 5 different types of readability in a summary. It struggled to bring down the grade level without cutting content. Yep. So that's where sometimes you're not going to be able to bring it down like completely. But it's I even think about like, you might not be able to bring it down, all of it down, but could you do like a summary or key points that are at a 8th grade reading level? Because then they can dive in deeper and you can have the more technical language there. All good examples. Okay, we're going to dive in deeper into how to use it within your schools. So, like I've been saying throughout, AI literacy is not a nice to have. All of our educators are going to need to have this, just like how I think we need to all have like mental health literacy, just understanding the basics. So they don't have to use it, but they have to know what it does. And so AI literacy is essential. Educators need to understand how AI works to guide students and make informed choices. They need to know the basics and how it functions, try tools to understand their strengths and limits, evaluate for bias, accuracy, and safety, and integrate responsibly into learning environments. So this is also where I don't think you're going to be able to completely get rid of it in school. So it's like, how are you going to integrate it? Or how are you going to let them use it or not use it? Or when can they use it? Because I don't think it's going to be completely able to be blocked in the entirety. Ooh, Dave has a good example. He uses it often with students. He takes a picture of their study guide and asks it to make a potential test questions, college level government course based on the photo outline. That's a really good example. So within the world of special education, supporting special education, so personalizing learning for diverse needs. So I think about all of the ways that you can personalize things for students, visuals, checklists, daily schedule, their visual schedules, personalizing their reading, that you're having them practice certain sounds, personalizing how they are studying. Maybe you're uploading their chapter that they're studying for social studies, and they're giving them quiz questions, or maybe for that student, they need it converted into like a table, or right. So converting it in a way of how that student learns or what that student needs to access. And then are offering targeted tools like speech to text and translation. So translation is not lovely, right? But it can be used as like a starter, but it shouldn't be used as like the sole translation, especially for technical documents. But it's really good for speech to text or read aloud or converting things into a way that the student can access them in a different modality. So thinking about how could the student access this information in an easier way? Do we need to add visuals? Do we need to have a bulleted point summary? Do we need to have a story timeline? So like maybe they're reading a very like Romeo and Juliet, and we create a timeline, a visual timeline for that student that they can mark off as they go through in their reading. It can enhance IEP goal tracking and intervention planning. So It should never write the IEP for you, but it can help you make sure your goal is measurable. It's never going to do the interventions for you, but it can help you come up with ideas for interventions or ideas for accommodations if you're stuck. We see a lot of situations where teams are like, these are our 5 accommodations, and that's all you do. And it's just because that's what you're used to. And so sometimes you need to branch out and learn about other ones or hear about other accommodations that are out there. Has anyone used it for accommodation, like idea generation or intervention idea generation? Sally's used it for accommodations. It's never going to pick them, right? You need to be able to say like, oh, that one worked before, that one doesn't work, or that does work in our environment or doesn't work in our environment. Yep, assistive technology ideas. Goal ideas, rubrics. So this is where, again, I like to reinforce it's a secretary or writing accommodations more clearly. So you already know what the accommodation you want, just writing in a maybe teacher family friendly way. Yeah, and it shouldn't pick it for you, but it helps you come up with how to progress monitor. What's an easy way to progress monitor this, or what tool could I use to progress monitor this goal, or could it come with a checklist for us to progress monitor? Accommodations for an online setting. Great ideas. I really think about AI as a great tool to boost accessibility for everyone, right? So we all have cell phones, we all have technology, and this is where being our assistive technology specialists, it is integrating those things into our day-to-day, into our students' day-to-day. So another fun example is I will upload a PDF of an article and it's long and I want to read it, but my eyes are done after a long day sitting on a computer, or I'm just tired. And so I will ask it to read it aloud and then I can just sit there and take it in. So sometimes converting the content to audio or to easier read formats, like we talked about earlier with bullets or a table or a flow chart or a timeline, can be helpful for people to process and understand, right? So what is the goal? Is our goal to understand the content and comprehend it? Is the goal to read the words? Is the goal to practice certain word sounds? Thinking about what is the goal and how can we get AI to help us get there. Suggest timely supports for at-risk students. So again, it's just oftentimes we'll feel stuck. We'll feel stuck emotionally because we have a lot on our plate. We have a lot on our plate with time, with students, timelines. And so I should never pick the things, but for example, we're really struggling with getting our student to school on time. What are some ideas of how we could get our student to school on time? And then it's going to come up with ideas. And then as a team, you could talk about what ones may work or not work. I'm really thinking empowering all learners through inclusive technology. And so we have a lot of students with significant needs who use technology, but I also think our students with executive functioning needs, students with serious emotional disabilities, our students who are mild moderate, the amount of assistive technology that they now have at their fingertips via their cell phone or iPad is astronomical. And I think more and more people should be diving into this world and integrating it into their life. I even think about, like, I have a Google Home in my kitchen and just asking it to create a grocery list. That's an assistive technology tool. I don't have to try and remember my grocery list. I can say aloud, hey, Google, add this to my grocery list, right? So thinking through those things of what is our students struggling with, and is there a piece of technology that can help them bridge that gap? So thinking about using it in writing, there are concerns. So 57% of special education teachers report using AI to assist with IEPs or 504 plans. So this does represent an increase. Teachers report using AI to identify trends in student progress, summarize IEP or 504 content, suggest accommodation, draft narrative sections, in some cases generate full plans. So I would never recommend doing that. But creating a visual, a chart of your progress monitoring data that's de-identified, that is a great tool. Helping come up with a progress monitoring tool, that is a great use. Helping make sure my IEP goals are measurable, that is a great mechanism. Brainstorming accommodations, that is a great mechanism. We do not want it to write the full plan. It's not individualized then. It's also not accurate. And also we talked a lot about earlier, it could still hallucinate. But there are things it can help with within. Any other suggestions around writing, especially around special education? Any other ones that we didn't talk about? Really, what I promote and what I talk to people about is using AI to enhance your productivity, but never substitute for professional judgment or ethics. So I use it to help me be more productive, be more efficient with my work, help me plan, organize, but it's never going to take away my professional judgment, and nor will it be for you all. I'm thinking about with your students and the teachers and staff you're working with, it could help you be more productive and organize, and strategize how you're working and what schools you're going to. Or I think about helping you create a schedule for where you're going in your district. Or I think about helping you create an itemized list of all of the technology accessible in your district or items you have in your district. So it could help you be more efficient, and it could help you be more clear in how you're helping people and working and interacting with people. Okay, in the chat, yes, so this is advanced. I technically have this with my Google Home a little bit where I set it up. So you can write programs, make it so that the apps do things that automate processes. So I do have this set with my, I have like geolocation on my phone, and if I'm home, certain things automatically turn on when I'm home. And then when my phone is away, it automatically turns off. And so Dave is talking about how you can automate processes. He's currently making a Bluetooth switch activation for my phone to cause effect toy via the shelf technology. Ooh, you can literally make your own app through Android. I'm not that advanced. I just am using other apps, integrating my geolocation in to turn off lights. I'm not on Android. Yeah. But the question I want us to process in the chat, thinking of students, when does automation cross the line from support to substitution? I kind of was hinting at this a little bit when we were talking about when to use it. So when does automation or the use of AI cross the line from support to substitution? Having it write the full IP, yeah, don't do that. Copying and pasting, not using AI as an information, but the answer. Not critically thinking of adapting it for your needs. You're no longer generating or filtering the ideas, you're just accepting them as there is. Yep. Not personalized for the student. Face value, taking it as face value without reviewing, editing. I think especially like, what is the goal, right? So if the goal is for the student to comprehend the reading passage, great. If the goal is for them to read at a certain reading level, I'm not going to change that passage, right? So what is the end goal, or what are we trying to help the student do? If I'm trying to teach the student how to prioritize, I'm not going to have AI do that. But if my goal is for them to complete all of their assignments, I might have them use AI to help them prioritize. So I have to think about like, what is the goal? What do we want the student to learn? Or in our situation, it is for adults, it's more of, is it still individualized? Is it revised? Is it edited? Is it vetted? Good thoughts. Okay, practical tips and draft. So drafting supports, generating social stories, IEP goal ideas, behavior plan templates to save time. So when I'm talking about behavior plan templates, like you're not uploading the bit, but you're uploading, you're typing in for this behavior, this is what we're doing. So then paraprofessionals can have like a very easier to read concrete. Or another one is I've had some teams take the visual of the escalation cycle for behavior and like put in what the adults have to do at what spot on the escalation cycle, integrated into the visual. Brainstorming interventions, so quickly developing evidence-based strategies or progress monitoring tools tailored to the students. Improving access. I'm not talking about language translation. I'm talking about like education ease translation. So like translating education ease heavy documents or letters for families to strengthen collaboration. Creating visuals, so image generating tools, visual supports. Always reviewing and edit. Don't take it as a first draft. And AI can enhance efficiency, but ethical responsibility and data privacy always remains within the human professional. So this was developed by KU Center for Innovation in Design and Learning. These are their 4 principles around integrating AI into schools, keeping humans at the center, prioritizing relationships, educator judgment, and transparency, planning strategically, so creating AI task force and conducting risk audits. So that's where we can't avoid it completely. You need to think about how are you going to use it, or when can we be using it? Ensuring equitable access, so promoting opportunities for all learners, and maintaining ongoing evaluation. So the world of AI has changed a lot since I dove in about 2 years ago. So it's not going to be the exact same in 2 years, and we have to be okay with that. AI for inclusion. So there was a 5-year 1.875 DOE grant supporting writing instruction for students with disabilities. It uses AI to provide immediate feedback and scoring on writing samples. It helps teacher link writing progress to instructional strategies and reflect on how such tools may enhance database decision making and instructional consultation. So there's been some research around how teachers are using AI to give the student immediate and concrete feedback on their writing, and then using that then to tailor the teaching lessons of what they need to work on. How we can have our teachers and our staff use AI, planning lessons, so generating ideas, templates, aligning things to standards. I even think about personalizing that learning, adapting the content to the student need, the reading level, or personalizing the content to the students or to their community and to their culture. So growing up in rural North Dakota, we never had any of our reading was about people in rural on a farm in North Dakota. Teachers could personalize that to our community and make it so that our reading was about people that we could see and know. Or conversely, the reading could be about communities and cultures we didn't know about. enhancing instruction, creating engaging multimodal materials. So creating interactive materials. So using the AI to create activities that people do with their hands. Using AI to create activities that people do online. Using AI to help create long-term units with various activities, interactions, helps brainstorm all those things that can be really helpful with that. Social stories, I've seen it done really well with social stories. I've seen many teams using AI to help really be more efficient in their time, and then also personalizing and making really lovely social stories for students and checklists and visual checklists. So that is one that I highly recommend if you've not explored. Grading and assessing, so not doing the grading, but building rubrics. So creating a rubric for that student or for that class, for that lesson. This is what you're going to get if you do these tasks. You'll get 2 points for this task. You'll get 4 if you do this. Because it is pattern recognition, it is really good at analyzing data. So data that's de-identified, tracking progress. So thinking through, is that student improving? Are they stagnant? It's really good at data analysis. So for example, one data point that I used AI with recently is October count data came out, and that's public information. And so I used it to help me create and determine. So we have a child find percentage. So in Colorado, about 13.8% of our students in the state qualify for special education. And so then I was able to input all of our districts and all of their child find percentages. And I was able to then determine who was out of the standard range and who was statistically significant and who was within the average range pretty quickly. And I was able to make a visual. And so again, that's public data on our website that's open to all. And it was helpful for me. So I didn't have to run all my stats and ANOVA. I was able to use AI to help me with that. And then I was also able to create a visual. Reduce admin load, so streamline records and routine tasks. So thinking about if there are things that you're having to do over and over and over and over again, is there a way that you can use AI to help you make that more efficient? And then support growth. So share strategies and give feedback for professional learning. So thinking about this right here of us sharing ideas when it was helpful, when I found it was not helpful, sharing about how you have used it, where you used it creatively. And I think about teachers sharing with each other. So if your district or BOCES is exploring the use of AI, of having opportunities for teachers to share where it worked well and where it didn't work well, or how they've used it or integrated in class, because honestly, no one's an expert because this is just not something that people have been around for a long time, and people need to learn through doing and exploring. And so I really find it helpful to have a discussion about how people have used it well and where people have found it to be helpful. Okay, before we move on, what other ways have you found it helpful when you're working with teachers? Or what other ways have your teachers found to use AI that's helpful? And if you don't want to type it all out, you can unmute. Yes, so Robin, I do use Notebook LM to have a echo chamber of the things I love, right? So it is an echo chamber of all the research I love, all of the legal documents I want to cite and look at. And I find it as a nice way that I can make sure I'm not looking at any fluff on the internet around certain topics. Oh, I'm glad you're learning, Amy. So one teacher built lessons around having students write a prompt for AI that shows they read the story through their prompt. So this is where I think we can't avoid AI. I think people are going to have to learn how to integrate it in to their lesson. So like, for example, my students or my nephews were supposed to use Grammarly to make it to a certain reading level. And my Blake, who is the 14-year-old, found it so hard. And the teacher gave them like tips, increase vocabulary, make more complex sentences, right? Like, and so it was forcing them to work on their writing to bring it up. It was really a wonderful lesson. Upload a bunch of journal articles and tell it to make it, entertaining podcast to teach it to you. So I did, so I do know a faculty member in a school psychology program. They did this, they uploaded all their content for their coursework into a notebook. So it's like that echo chamber is that course. So let's take like intro to school psychology pretend course, and they upload everything into there. And then they made it so that their students could listen to all of the content when they were, because a lot of people had to drive long distances or driving to their practicums or internship sites. And so then that way they didn't have to physically read, they could listen to their syllabus, and they could listen to the journal articles needed. Yes. Any other good teacher examples or examples you've used it in real life? Oh, you developed a selective mutism notebook with all the research you could find, and you could ask it questions about best practice. You made some podcasts. The debate podcast was fascinating. You can even tell it what kind of voice you want.
I'm just going to come off mute because I was
Yes,
typing.
please, Dave.
I did it in a class just yesterday at a high school. There was some kids that were in a photography class, and I was helping a kid out, and they were trying to make this action shot that wasn't working. And I was talking to them about AI and its exponential growth, especially in generating photos. And I showed them an example of just taking a picture. They were dropping a Mountain Dew bottle into a tank that was backlit by blue with some raspberries around it. I took a picture of the Mountain Dew, did an AI prompt, put it on the thinking mode instead of fast, and got the exact photo that they wanted. And they were like, "That's awesome." And I was like, "Yeah, it's awesome, but now you have to understand lighting and everything else." So the
Yep.
principles are there, but I think like with coding and stuff, if we're still teaching kids coding, it needs to be more AI related and how it can be an assistant versus how it is. You'd have to learn the old way because it's not going to be applicable.
Yep. Yep. Because it's like if you can't know that it's wrong, you won't be able to fix it. Like you have to be able to tell or like understand where it's off and then know where to align it.
Yeah, and with the program, there's an exponential rate of growth, and there's actually a couple articles that are pretty good to talk about, like Ray's law and the ability for it to generate its own, and why they started with coding, so that it could actually write its own program exponentially faster and start to put human nuances into it. So it's only going to get better every 7 months. So you might as
Yep.
well get on board or get left behind.
Yeah, and that's why we've been talking, and actually at CDE, we have a work group that we're trying to work on things to push out to the field because teachers are not going to be able to ignore it. And I actually have some online modules at the end that I'm gonna go through and talk to you all about that are free that I do want you to share with your staff members if they are looking into the use of AI in their classroom. So all really good examples. Yeah, and I'm a very like I love audio, so I turn almost all of my reading into audio. So like the Notebook LM option to turn things to audio or into a podcast. Great. I'm glad people are learning, and I'm glad people are sharing, because this is how we learn, is through discussion. Great. Okay, alt text. So this is another way I use AI for accessibility. So CDE is following the new 508 guidelines for accessibility in all of our content and PowerPoints and presentations. And so all of our images have to have alternative text, all of our graphs, all of our logos and such. And so for some people that can be burdensome. And so one way you can do this is to also you have to be logged in to your AI platform to do this. So if you're not logged in, you might not be able to upload an image. But what I want you to do is to upload an image and ask it to write alt text for an image attached. Keep it under 125, 100 words, 50 words, whatever you would like. Characters for screen readers. I've even said like family friendly or child friendly language. And then I want people to share out what they get or if it's accurate. And Dave did mention earlier, you have to be careful if there's like, sometimes it'll like misinterpret things, or if there's words within the image, sometimes that can be misinterpreted or misidentified. Okay, while we are all doing this, I'm going to upload a CBE image. Laura, would you say that's an accurate description? Yes, nice. Anyone else upload an image and did they get a good description? Beth, did your description align? It did, nice. Great. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna upload my dog. Let's see what they give me. Alt text for this image, child appropriate for a screen reader. I'll slide this over so you guys can see. So this was my picture of my dog that I uploaded. And then it said, happy tan dog with one blue eye, one brown eye, sitting on a wooden porch. The dog is wearing a red bandana with a blue and white stars, looking at the camera with its tongue out. And then you can make it shorter, more descriptive, written to meet WCAG accessibility guidelines, which is what we aim for at CDE. Great. Yes, Jerry, it was a good description for the information I gave it. I can see how giving more details will allow for more specificity. So yes, it's all about the prompt or the information we give it. So I didn't say I wanted WCAG guidelines, so it did ask if I wanted that. I didn't say I wanted a certain reading level, right? So I could further the prompt and say I needed at a 5th grade reading level meets WCAG guidelines, and then I'll revise what it gave me and give me an improved alt text statement.
Just because I was really curious what it would do, I use a photo for speech therapy that has like things that are not quite right happening in the photo. Like there's a giraffe driving a van and a bear like sitting at a dinner table, and it's all in one photo and it's super strange. So I put that one in, and it was interesting to see like how it summarized in 125 characters. And then when I asked it to be more thorough, what it expanded on and what it still didn't recognize. Like it said there's a park ranger, but left out that he was roller skating. And so it was interesting to see the like context that it added and left out.
Yep. Yeah, and that's where bias can come into play too, right? So is it including everything that we would want it to include, or not include, right? So we have to read it and make sure it's accurate and a representation of that we want for the screen reader. I use this quite a bit. We have a lot of like flow charts and visuals and hard to explain, like just charts and graphs. And so they can be, the descriptions need to be very detailed. And so I've uploaded those to help with the alt text for those. It's never the end all because I have to go in and supplement and make sure it's all accurate, but it's a very helpful tool to help start the flow chart or whatever I may be trying to describe. Okay, now conversely, we asked it to describe an image. We're going to go off book. And depending on your platform or whatever you're using, I want you to ask it to create an image that would support something that you need in school. So a visual representation of assistive technology, a visual representation of what an SLP does, visual representation of an AAC device. Let's see what people get. So whenever you're asking it to create an image, oftentimes it will take a significant amount of time. So just know that it's processing and it will take a lot longer. Anyone get any good images? Mine's still processing. Oh, fun. Your daughter described how she wanted her birthday cake for her birthday in January. I put it in what she described to AI, and it came up with a fun idea we copied. I love that.
Something interesting. I just put in to put a photorealistic picture of children in a special education classroom in an education setting, and it said that it cannot be done because of non-consensual pictures of minors in a special education classroom. But if you put resource room in, it happens just fine. And there's a picture of a kid with headphones and somebody doing instruction. So interesting.
Yeah, I think sometimes the things it says like I can't do that. I'm like, ooh, like you can do that. I don't want you to do this over here, but you are doing that already. That's interesting that it's calling out that I might have a bias or make an not a bias, but calling out that it doesn't want to make student or children pictures. Christina made one. Here's what I generated when I asked for a visual representation of an AAC needs assessment process. Would you say that's accurate process, Christina?
Some of the steps are actually reversed, so not really. So Yeah.
So not a
So the
perfect
goal
on the first
setting
try.
usually would go after the selection. So
Yep.
yeah.
This is the prompt I used, and I created this lovely image about, I said, create a visual representation of CDE, its roles, duties, support in Colorado and CDE colors, and make it family friendly. And this is what it provided me.
Mhm.
Yeah, safety guidelines, huh? Visual representation of a high-tech AEC device. Jennifer did a representation of a play-based child find evaluation. It was nice to see it give a pic with a full team evaluation, including OT, speech, psych, and mom as well, and the child. That's great. So this is where you can see where it can do it. Also, it could be off a little bit, or it also could have bias, or it might not give you an image because it says it's safety guidelines. But it gave you the resource room. And then Michelle says she likes to use Nano, Banana, and Gemini as it can add to the prompt and it will edit the image. Yep, so there's certain tools that I could say then, this image is almost there. Can you add in XYZ? Or can you change this certain section? Or with the step-by-step one that Christina did, it could be, can you make sure the steps are step 1, step 2, this, step 3, this, step 4, this. And then it'll revise the image for you. Yep. Great. Good test. Okay. So in special education, really AI tools may function as an assistive technology device when they increase functional access to learning. Its support should increase independence, not replace the student's thinking, right? So when I'm thinking about AI, I'm thinking about for students or staff. I think it can be a powerful tool to amplify learning for students and teachers and all educators. It's not going to replace learning, but amplify it, make it more accessible, make it more interactive, hopefully. Possible uses, we've talked a lot about simplifying text, creating study guides, grammar and revision support, planning checklists, vocabulary support. I know of some people who have uploaded vocabulary lists and asked it to create like a visual, put the vocabulary word in a sentence, give me the definition of the vocabulary word. So not just the word, but then this whole layer so the student has a better understanding of that word, a more comprehensive understanding of that word versus just the word. So when we're thinking about special education and we're thinking about supporting students, what disability area or what area of need do you think might benefit most from this type of support or integrating AI into their supports? Or do you think it'll support the educators the most? For students with that need visual supports? Oh, her image came up. Let's see what this one was. Long time, but I put in creative picture of a preschooler using a lamp, words for life on a playground while playing it. It used an AEC stand bolted in a slide. So not quite 100% reality with your image, Kristen, but it made a nice image. So Sally says both educators and students may benefit leveled readers, dyslexia, so leveling the reading, changing the reading levels. So Robin said this cracked me up, must have that Velcro. Oh, the Velcro on the back. interesting. Text level modification ability to change the reading level. Students who have a firm understanding of their strengths and deficits will be able to utilize AI. Yes. I think it could be a tool that you teach to high school students so that they're able to modify their content or modify so that they're able to access at a better rate or break things down or create them a list. I think there's a lot of ways that we could use it with students. Students with English language arts, visual learners, or students who use AECs. Applied effectively in virtually every disability category if implemented well. Yeah. I also think like executive functioning, students who need planning, organization. Yes, I think for educators, I agree, Dave. Educators hopefully are able to offload like clerical, like time-consuming, demanding tasks and allow them to spend time with students. I just think about the amount of time I took. So I was a teacher before I became a school psychologist, and the amount of time I did like organizing and lesson planning and planning out like unit lessons and unit scheduling for the year. It's like that's what it's good at. I'm like I could upload and be like, here are the units I want to do this year. Help me plan it out. Here are our breaks. And it can map out for the whole year. And then we could plan in lessons within there instead of having to do all that myself. Students with dyslexia, dysgraphia, ADHD. Yeah, so Amy brings up a good point. So working with a large DHH population, English is not native. Yeah, it's their second language. And they have struggles. And then for the blind and visually impaired population on campus, I could see being most beneficial to create visuals and full picture, but it does need to be monitored closely to ensure the hallucinations and information is correct. Yeah, have to check the images, you have to check the content. You'll get wonky things sometimes. I've seen images where there's like 4 arms, and you're like, that's not right. So here are just some ideas. So for dyslexia, text simplification, summarizing, ADHD, task breakdown, checklists, autism, social scripts, social stories, social visual cues, language disorders, sentence expansion. So helping them practice expanding their sentences or practice getting their sentences to a certain reading level. Writing disabilities, idea generation, or like we talked about earlier, the steps to creating a paragraph. Laura did a visual, this one in English and Spanish, but how to make corrections. So types of AEC, so no tech, low tech, mid tech, high tech. That's a great visual, but yeah, often you're not going to get it on the first prompt. You might not have been clear enough or include everything that you need. So do some corrections or clarifications, and then that's a lovely visual, especially if you're having new families or new special education teachers. The first sign language graphic has 6 fingers. It does. So like I said, I've seen things with 4 arms, 6 fingers. Ooh, I love the idea of visual impairments making high contrast visuals. Yes. So that's an example where that's an easy ask of, can you convert this image or can you convert this text into high contrast, emphasizing this portion? I love that idea. Okay. So AI and the SET framework, right? So when we're thinking about assistive technology, we're thinking about the student, we're thinking about that environment, the tasks we're asking them, and the tools. So thinking through what barriers exist for that student, like what's blocking their ability to show their knowledge. Is it their reading comprehension? Is it written expression, organization? Or like Robin just noted in the chat, for a student with significant motor difficulties, yeah, it might allow them to expand their ideas, right? So it might allow them to have a writing sample and then say, oh, I want you to expand this sentence to say X, Y, Z. Especially with students with physical motor, it might be very supportive for them to have a tool that they could help do teach or text, voice to text, and then they could edit and revise it using the tool. For the environment, thinking about how can you make our classroom expectations clearer. So using AI to create visuals, using AI to create a social story around classroom expectations. What technology do you have in the classroom to access for technology for accessing? Having environment, having a district AI policy so all expectations and that environment is clear. Some tasks, reading complex text, so helping students read complex text, writing essays, completing multi-step assignments, breaking them down, communicating ideas. Maybe they have this visual like the cake in their mind and they can't think of the words to express it. And so then it's using AI to help them express maybe what they're not able to articulate. Tools, text simplification, summarization, outline generation, vocabulary explanation, organization tools. So here's just some basic ideas. We've obviously talked a lot about more. Yeah, Ken brought up, this is a perfect example of how the limitations. So with the sand image with the AEC device screwed onto the slide, notice how detailed the sand is, but it's screwed to the side, which is not realistic or real, right? So here are some example prompts that people might use. Explain this passage at a middle school level, summarize the main idea in this article, turn these notes into a paragraph, help me write the first sentence of an essay, or even help me create a visual graphic of a essay components, break this assignment into steps, create a checklist for completing this project, explain this word in simple terms, help me turn this idea into a sentence. So here, thinking more around reading, we've talked a lot about simplifying language. So providing definitions and context, summarizing content, creating bullet points, supporting study skills. So creating a study guide, generating flashcards, highlighting essential vocabulary. So maybe you're uploading content saying bold, essential, or new vocab or bold vocabulary that is at a high reading level or atypical. And then here's some additional prompts that might be helpful for around reading. With writing, outlines, notes into structured paragraphs, suggesting logical paragraph order, drafting development, so expanding bullet points into sentences, so converting, improving sentence clarity, providing transition words, checking grammar and punctuation, suggesting stronger vocabulary, and then providing feedback on clarity. And then again, some example prompts. Here's some ideas around executive functioning. So converting large assignments into smaller steps, generating checklists, creating timelines, creating daily schedules, helping prioritize tasks, suggesting study plans, help generating reminders, creating progress checklists, helping students review completed work. For example, you could like upload the rubric and upload your assignment. Do I meet all the rubric requirements? Break this project into steps, and then here's some other example prompts. Some additional ideas around communication, expanding short sentences, modeling correct grammar, explaining word meanings, creating visuals for certain words, providing examples of word and context, explaining figurative language. I even think about like giving visuals of figurative language, generating synonyms, helping draft emails, writing short messages, turning ideas into a full sentence. And then here's some example prompts. Okay, I think this is our last activity, and I don't think we're actually gonna go all the way to 4, so you'll get some time back today. But what we're gonna do is I want you in whatever AI platform you would like, put in this prompt, Break this assignment into clear steps for a middle school student. Write a 3 to 5 page research paper about a Colorado issue. And that they need to include 3 sources and give a short presentation. So that's the ask of the student. And so what we're going to ask AI is break this assignment into clear steps for the middle schooler to complete. Thanks, Emily. So I'm going to put in break this assignment down into concrete steps for a, let's say, 6th grade student who struggles to complete assignments. The assignment is write a 3 to 5 page, ooh, that's long. Let's just say 3-page research paper about a Colorado issue, child-friendly, include 3. The student has to include 3 sources and give a short presentation. Okay. So for me, it gave me like a step-by-step guide of how for that student that they could fill out to complete this assignment. So number 1, pick our topic. It gave us some topics that we could use. Wildfires, water shortage, wolves, homelessness, air pollution, protecting wildlife, drought, affordable housing. Write your topic here. Steps 2, find 3 sources. You need 3 places where you got information. A source could be a website, a book, a news article, a video from a trusted source. Source 1, 2, and 3. Step 3, take notes. Read or watch your sources and write short notes. You only need to find answers to these questions. What is the issue? What is happening? So it even gives them questions that they need to answer. And then write your paper. Write about what is the issue, where is it happening in Colorado, why is it important? Start it like this if you need help. One important issue in Colorado is X. This problem affects, people are concerned about this issue because. And then it continues to go down about like information, solutions, adding your sources, and then how to prepare a short presentation. And then it gave me a checklist. Anyone want to share aloud or in the chat of what their experience was with this prompt?
Mine looks almost identical to yours with like the exception of a couple of the wordings.
Mm-hmm.
Except I put that my student struggles with time management and it plugged in like a suggested timeline.
Oh, nice.
I thought it was interesting how similar it looked.
Yeah.
And
It's
really
not
what
always
I
similar.
want to do.
Jerry says it's quite thorough and detailed. Yep. I honestly think for students with executive functioning, planning, organization issues, it can be very helpful. Michelle said she said her student has access to read and write for Google Chrome, and it incorporated those tools into the steps. I love that. This was the prompt, Sally. I'll open this slide back up.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I think, and that's where it's whatever you give it, like the prompts, that's what you're going to put out, right? So I think it was Kristen who said she included that the student had struggled with time management. I included that the student had struggled with assignment completion. I did not ask it to make a checklist, but it did for me automatically. So then what you could do, Sally, is once it outputs, say, could you create a checklist for the student that I could print for them to have and turn in when they turn in their assignment? Or even like a checklist with due dates, and here's the due dates. Like, topic selected is due Monday. 3 sources is due Tuesday, right? So even breaking it down with due dates.
If you do break it down by due dates and you're using Gemini, you can also ask it to create reminders and then send it out to your children as well. So we do that.
Ooh. That is a great tip, Dave. I do not use Gemini because of the platforms we have for CDE. So that is a great, you can integrate it into your Google Calendar.
Yeah, so specifically you can say either set a reminder, do whatever you want, or you can build it into Gemini and then it will create the dates. And then you could say, please add those to the dates and add your son's email. I use it for my son, his email to it, and then have him, he actually gets it. So then he sees all the stuff for it too.
That's a great tip. I might have to switch to Gemini. CD, for personal reasons, CD doesn't use Gemini.
Yeah, I haven't tried it with Copilot, but I know Copilot integrates into Outlook pretty well as well and does some of those tasks. I just haven't messed with it as much as Gemini because I pay for Gemini. So.
Yep. Yeah, that's it too. Like, I think about people are like, why do you use this? I'm like, well, it's because what we have for work, right? And so then you get used to that tool. And I know some other people who use Magic School and they love Magic School, and that's all they're using. The one that I did add in was Notebook LM because of its unique capabilities. And that's a unique one that I think people should explore. Jennifer says she has 2 adult boys who struggle with executive functioning as well as significant dyslexia. This would have saved a lot of tears. Yes. Or like for me, I have working memory. Like, I can't remember what I did 3 steps ago. And I'm like, I need to write everything down. And so just being able to, like, I can word dump everything I need to do, and then it'll create a project plan for me. So I can like word dump, I want to do all of these things, and this is what I want to do, and this is what I want to do. And it'll organize it for me and in the correct order. And like, it'll also include things that I like didn't even think about. Anyone else want to share anything about this prompt? Yeah, I do a lot of talking into AI versus typing. Okay, because we do have the time. I do want us to do another one that's similar and build for our younger friends. So I will type it up and put it on the screen. Okay, so what I want you to do is ask AI to create a morning and after school backpack checklist for a kindergartner who tends to forget everything they need for school. Also include a graphic image for each step. Okay, so I put the prompt in the chat. You can personalize it, modify it to see if you can get something different. But I want us to practice getting a checklist for some of our younger friends.
quickly go home.
Anyone get an output? I have an output and I have an observation that I want to share, but I want to give everybody else an opportunity to share if there's any things you wanted to share or observe about what you received from the prompt. I just gave you the coding for it, no image. It's all in an image. Oh, yours is all in one image too. So mine created 3 images for each step, but they're all boys. Oh, you screenshot the prompt and so then you upload it and that's what you came out. Yeah, mine created had words, a checkbox, and then 3 images. And all my images are boys, which is fine. I didn't prompt that. And so I would have to say, I want it to be a young Asian girl who really likes K-pop and use K-pop images throughout. Oh, Krista's got a ready to roll and bring it back. Folder, snack, lunch, water, zip. Folder, empty, water, cubby. Great. So this is where we all kind of did the same prompt, a little bit differently, different AI platforms, and we could get different outputs. It's also understanding of, this is where you can also personalize to the student. So Trudy made one that's like a board force. It looks like it's almost on like a backpack tag that you could print off. Oh, interesting, Amy. It created a PDF for you to download, but didn't allow you to download it. So this is where sometimes it can be particular. Yeah, and I would say for this situation, it would be, I would want to make sure I'm including anything specific that the student is forgetting or needs to remember every morning. Maybe it's their jacket, or maybe they're forgetting to unload their backpack at the end of the day and it's full of garbage. Or where does the backpack go? Or is there particular colors, or do we want high contrast? Do we want certain words, right? So thinking of all those components, and this is an example of how you could create pretty easy visuals, much more faster often than you would be able to on your own. This is Glint and just use generic prompt. Great. I mean, this one, I like the simple, it's nice. Oh, so you got a purple one? Wow. Oh, we got 2. I got a brushing teeth and getting dressed. This is great. Great. Okay, so now I want you to think about, so we've done older middle school with homework breakdown, and we did a before and after school backpack checklist. Thinking about your students, or even your kids yourself, your own students, your own children. What is one task students struggle with, or your own child, that AI might help you scaffold so it's easier for them? What's something you might scaffold? Paragraph writing for research projects, yep. What needs to be included in a paragraph? What are the components? Yes, cleaning her room. So Kristen, I laugh and I chuckle because I know someone who took a picture of the clean room, took a picture of the messy room, uploaded it, and then they used those to like, this is what your room is when it looks like when it's messy. Here's what you need to do. This is what a clean room should look like. Breaking down assignments into steps and using the reminders to stay on task and not have missing assignments. I love the idea of creating calendar reminders and prompts. Long-term projects, science fair, history day, scaffolding the process of getting lunch and including giving the number to the lunch lady. Yep, I taught kindergarten and I think we practiced going through the lunch line every day, 4 or 5 times a day. And then again in January, 3 or 4 times. Yes, do it with the pick of a clean room. Love to hear it. Never thought of using AI. Yeah, so they took a picture of the room when it was horrific, like everything all over, and said, this is what a messy room is. If your room looks like this, you need to clean it. And then it was like, you should clean your room at least once a week. And then it like went through, put dirty laundry in laundry basket, fold and put away clean clothes, make bed, vacuum. Went through each steps. Scaffolding for ELA students, breaking down lessons. So Laura shared that Magic, To-Do feature, and Goblin AI have the ability to break down any task into steps, even estimates time, anything from writing an essay to cleaning the kitchen. Co-op, so plan, do, goal, plan, do, check in student language for any task. Yep. What's our goal? What's the plan? What are we going to do? And then how do you check back in? There, did each one. Awesome. How about for educators? What's one thing that we could maybe use with educators? Yep, timelines. What is something our educators struggle with that we maybe promote they could use AI to help them be more efficient or do it better? How to incorporate accommodations, how to write good goals, so making sure it's a measurable, making sure it's a SMART goal. Yes, so some sort of list to help paras use AEC devices in different environments with different materials. Yeah, so thinking about using notebook LMs for a chatbot, expecting them to read so they can find the answers. Yep. Personalized high interest writing prompts. Yes. So especially for our students that are really adverse to writing or reading, making things high interest. UDL into lesson planning. Yes. Time saving to create lessons about specific topics, fact check course. Yes. Love these ideas. I really like making sure things are family friendly. Checking yourself, am I being family friendly? Is my language family friendly? Or is our website family friendly? Or what we're sending out in our newsletter to families is family friendly? Is it at an appropriate reading level? I even think it's fun to create visuals of like, this is what a school psychologist does. This is what, right? Like, just helps with comprehension. Okay, so AI should help make teaching and your jobs, all of our jobs. When I'm talking about teaching, I'm talking about all of us, learning and supporting students more human, not less, right? So we just talked about integrating the students into the lesson, integrating their interests into the lesson, making it easier for them to access, making it easier for families to access. It should make it so it's more personable and for them and for us and easier to access. And this comes from the Colorado AI Roadmap. This is a resource. If you've not checked it out, again, I would highly recommend it. It was a cooperative document made by the CEI, so Colorado Education Institute, and the Colorado Department of Education, and some partners around the use of AI. So what I want you to hear is AI isn't going to replace the heart of what we do. It cannot replace you, it cannot replace professional judgment, it cannot replace ethics, but it's helping us protect time for it, right? So it's helping us protect time for those things that we can't, that humans can only do. The challenge now is to stay curious, stay critical, and stay human. So don't become a bot. Don't let it do things it shouldn't do. Be critical of it. Be critical of what it outputs. I always say I'm the most skeptical person of AI, and I use AI a lot. And so I'm always critical of what it's outputting. I'm critical of new platforms. I'm critical of new businesses. And that's okay. I'd rather be too critical and still use it than use it blindly. So this is the one course that if you need your educators to learn more, it's through Khan Academy. So if you've not used Khan Academy, it's a lovely platform for students to expand their knowledge. It is fact-checked, it's research-based. I love Khan Academy. They currently have 3 units. So unit 1 is getting started with generative AI. Unit 2 is getting ready to teach with AI, and Unit 3 is lesson plans, AI literacy, common sense education. So they're continuing to expand, and they're going to add more modules. Where did that? Well, it's because I've already started the course, but this was created by like Common Sense Media, Khan Academy, and various partners. And so it is well researched, it's well done, it's from a neutral, free company. And so I highly recommend sharing this with educators and other people that if they're looking, oh yeah, here it is, code.org, Common Sense Education, AI EDU, professors Ethan and Lilac Molik, and other trusted partners. And so just know that this is something that I highly recommend for educators if they need like an AI literacy, AI 101. This is a good place to start. For a longer document, the Common Sense Media document is the other place I would recommend going. And that Common Sense Media also has created AI basics for teachers. I'll open this one up as well. You have to sign in and create an account, dang it. But they have an AI basics for K-12 teachers. Again, I love the Common Sense Media document, and I love their AI in schools resources. They have a district toolkit, they have risk assessments, they have professional development for educators. Oh, I didn't really fully answer that one, Ken. Yeah, we'll go back to that. 2 truths in AI, so 2 truths and a lie, but AI. So tips for teachers on how to use AI. So these are a couple of resources that I highly recommend to explore and share with your people in your world. Ken, let's do your question before we go to the next discussion. I might have missed if you answered my earlier question. How do you check for plagiarism? Honestly, nowadays there are plagiarism checkers and AI checkers online, but they also aren't always accurate either. So when I'm talking about plagiarism, I'm talking about using it almost as like a one-to-one. So I'm saying, write my essay on the water drought in Colorado. And then it's like copying and pasting and taking that, and that I wrote it completely. When in reality, I didn't write that essay at all. And so I think, so that's also where, what do we mean by plagiarism? It's like, did I actually do the work? Am I taking someone else's work and taking it as mine? Am I citing my sources? So I think it's multi-layered. I also think it's, many of our students are using it in that way of taking a picture of my math problem and doing the math problem, and I just write down the number. And then I say that I know how to do that math problem when in reality I don't. Oh, so how can we see if they've actually developed the necessary skills for their subject in the world of AI? That's hard. It's what are we measuring? You most likely are gonna have to measure it live. You're gonna have to measure it possibly without technology or on a locked computer, so that they are not able to go and then open up an AI browser. Or I've seen situations where they have to use AI and they have to say what prompts they use. So like forcing them to use AI in a structured way. But I agree, Ken, that's a hard one. It's also one where I'm talking with graduate professors for like school psychology, school social work, school like speech paths. And they're worried that people are never going to develop the skill for like interpretation and analysis around special education and report writing. And you have to have that. And it's like they're making them do those things in person or aloud. So it's like they're making them explain their analysis, making them explain their thinking aloud.
And how fair is it to ask kids with disabilities who have all these accommodations in other ways to do that on the fly in front of the teacher?
Well, and that's where it's like it would have to be really dependent, right? So the students knew they were going to have to come in and explain their thinking. And they did that individually with the teacher in this situation that I'm referencing. So I think for students, it's going to be what is the goal or what are we trying to teach them to do? So is it writing a paragraph, or is the goal reading comprehension? Or so it's going to be dependent, but it might be that they have to sit and talk with the teacher of their thinking or how they thought through that math problem, just in a different environment, not in front of other students. And I think we're going to have to think a little bit different about how we measure knowledge. And I also think we have to think about how we might have to teach differently, or pedagogy might have to be different.
You can always check their search history too, though. That's the other thing. Because if they're using school computers, it's in their search history. And if they're not in Google Docs, you can always back out of it and hit return a couple times and see when they texted a large group of text in. And that's a telltale sign. My kids are both of that age, and I catch them doing things all the time. And then we have to have the conversation about knowledge. So there's ways around it. But kids are also too taking and going into one AI platform, having them write a prompt for an essay, and then switching over to another one and then saying, leaving it 80% correct or the same, please edit for whatever. And they do that back and forth, and then it's unrecognizable at some point. You can't tell what's real and what's not. But
yeah, and even the AI checkers, or the plagiarism checkers, they're not always 100% accurate. It'll like say you plagiarized, and I'm like, that's actually not plagiarism. I'm citing, like, it was like I'm citing a source. So those aren't even 100% accurate when people are using those.
But you know this too from looking at AI writing. You can tell when somebody writes with AI. I automatically can look at an email and go, "Oh, AI generated." You just see certain things in keywords, and they're out there.
Yep. Good question, though. So what I want you to think about and process, and you can either share in the chat or aloud. So I want you to try one thing this week. So either simplify text, draft an agenda, draft a plan, work plan, break down an assignment, create a visual. So we did a lot of practice and trying today. But what I want you to do is over the next work week, when you're doing something that's low risk, right? So I'm never going to tell you to use anything with PII, but low risk. I want you to try it out. I also want you to review your district, agency, employer, AI policy. You need to know what they want and don't want you to do. You need to know what platforms you are and are not, or are supposed to use or not supposed to use. So if your district doesn't have a policy, I would possibly talk to your leadership. Are we going to be adopting a policy? And then sharing one resource or a takeaway with a colleague. And then just keep experimenting. So I want you to think about louder in the chat, how could you do one of these things? Or what's your one takeaway or share? Maybe that'll be the easiest one. Either one way you're going to try it or one takeaway or thing you're going to share with colleagues. Social stories, and then trying to create AAU suggestions for paras. Yeah, talking about people around the server and privacy concerns. That's something I actually asked an owner of a person who's putting their name on a very large AI company and going to be making a lot of money from this AI company. I asked him that question explicitly, and he got upset with me and said we didn't need to know that. And I was like, no, that's actually important. Yeah, Beth, I know. So there are companies out there that are advocating, and there's people that are using like full reports, and I'm going to tell you, they're not accurate. They don't look at behavior, they don't look at culture, they're not good at interpretation, they're hallucinating, they're making things up. And we can tell. And so just know that that's going to lead to a lot of legal issues if people are choosing to do that, and that's going to be on the professional. Social stories, Melinda, looking at your district policy, looking at the different platforms, and we're going to go through some here. Thinking about how to help students understand class novels, creating checking documents, making sure the text level is appropriate. It is a fancy calculator. I equate it to my fancy calculator, yes. Finding out your policy, asking IT for support with AI in the classroom, and how to help with goal writing and comms, tons of ideas. History, yep. Finding out your district policy, being transparent, yeah. I'm transparent. I use AI often. I use it to double check all my emails that go out across my listserv. I use it to cross check all my PowerPoints to make sure I have spelling and everything's correct, and formatting and color contrast. Visual schedule for a whole classroom. Yeah. Oh, Michelle, will the chat be part of the recording? Emily, that would be a question for you all. It can be. You can get a transcript of the chat.
Yeah, we'll have a transcript, but it won't be part of the recording that goes on YouTube. But if people need a specific part of it, we'll have that at SWAC. So you can feel free to email us and we can grab a specific part of it for you.
So the question around ChatGPT, I think that's going to depend on your district. If your district allows you to use a platform, as long as you're not doing student information, PII. I know some districts say you're only allowed to use Magic School, or you're only allowed to use Copilot, or you're only allowed to use Gemini. And then you can use ChatGPT for your own personal, like if you're doing recipes and such, but that would be district to district. Okay, continuing on, key takeaways. These are the things I want you to walk away with. AI should enhance, not replace, human judgment. Start small, low risk. So if you've never used AI before and this is your first go about, try something that's low risk. So editing, summarizing, planning tasks, using it in your personal life, making a recipe plan, making a workout plan, prioritizing privacy and professionalism. So really, it would be on you as a professional and your license if you misuse AI with student data. And that's something that I think people forget, that it would be on you, not, oh, whatever, it could be an issue legally. Use AI to make work more human, so simplifying, clarifying, and improving accessibility. Really, how can we make this, our school and our students' experience, more personable for them? And then stay curious and critical. So always being curious and open, but yet critical. especially if people are claiming for things to be completely free. I always am extremely critical if anything's free. Here are some tools out there. I'm just going through. These are not all of them. There's some that I know that have popped up in the last few months, but just some ideas of how you could use each platform, and then a link to that said platform. So we have ChatGPT, obviously. Can help with lesson planning, student engagement, personalizing learning, organization, PD. Again, only use platforms that you're allowed to use, but here are some that are out there. Magic School. It does have a lot of features that are specifically built for educators. Personalized learning supports for students, PD resources for AI integration. It does save time on routine tasks, adapts to diverse learning needs, and it's trusted generally by educators. It's built for educators by educators. CuriePod is an educational platform that enables teachers to create interactive lessons, fostering curiosity and critical thinking. PsychWriter is a high-performance report writer. It is designed to streamline report writing. Again, never put anything that's PII in AI. There is a school psych AI platform. I include it, but I don't love it, just gonna be honest. It is an AI-driven platform tailored to support school psychologists with assessment, report writing, and intervention planning. They do use Amazon Web Server or services for their servers. Explaining Brains AI, so it's tools for neuroscience and psychology education. So provides AI-driven resources to enhance understanding of neuroscience and psychology concepts. AbleSpace, this is one that I just added. So it helps you with goal writing and reporting and creating like progress monitoring tools. Nuclei, personalized visual social stories, first then boards, visual schedules, SEL lesson plans, personalization. And then like Google Lens, it's image recognition, tools for identifying objects, translating text. Socratic, Autodross, Groovly, Canva. So there's a lot out there. I didn't even include like Marker, which is a newer tool for report writing. And then here are some specific resources. So we have the Colorado Roadmap for AI in K-12 education. There's nonprofits offering guidance resources. So there's EdSafe, all these various people that are providing guidance or what we should be doing around AI in education. And then here's some more AI resources. So how we can use AI in education. So like how data and AI are changing education, how we can introduce Azure OpenAI services in schools, collaboration to bring AI innovation to education. So there's a whole variety of how AI can be used in education. If there's definitions, or some of the definitions today were used are wonky. Stanford University Human-Centered AI Center has a definition list, and then also EdSafe AI Alliance K-12 AI Policy Lab has a key terminology list. And then the researchers that I've been mentioning, Lockwood and Brown, they have a few research articles that I linked here. There's also some podcasts that I've linked here around the complexity of AI application, specifically in school psychology. Okay, then here's all my references. Oh, I didn't include my contact information. I'll put that in the chat right now. We're officially done with content. I will stay around for questions, discussion. Like Claire said, before you go, have you signed in? Please do so. And then I'm going to put my email in the chat. So if people have questions or wonderings, feel free to email me. Do not email me anything that has student information. The amount of times I get people sending me full special education evaluations, so please don't do that. I will delete it very quickly. But I'll stick around for the next 18 minutes and answer any questions that people have.